What does it truly take to earn your place in a family that only views you as a tool? For Radis, living in luxury and eating gourmet sweets was once just an impossible dream. She was expected to endure everything without complaint. When a handsome man wraps his arms around her and whispers, "You're radiant, Radis," it feels surreal. But getting to this moment required paying a horrific price. Her tragic story began with a life of endless sacrifice. For the better part of her life, Radis was forced to disguise herself as a knight and fight deadly battles in her brother's place. She charged into fire and blood just to earn her parents' approval. Talk about a raw deal. Late one night, an armored rider collapses outside the estate gates. The panicked servants scream for Master David, believing their precious young heir has returned from war. She gave up her identity for him. When the helmet slips off, blood spills across her face as red hair tumbles out. The servant gasps in horror, crying, "My lady, please open your eyes. Is this really how her devotion is repaid?" Meanwhile, inside the warm estate, Margaret Tilrod dotes lovingly on her eldest son, David. He sits comfortably at the dinner table reading a book, completely untouched by the bloody battle his sister just fought. Over a lavish meal, Yurhi mocks her brother's romantic poetry, driving David to slam the table and demand she leave. Margaret scolds them both for bickering yet again before walking off. Can't they enjoy one quiet dinner? A frantic maid suddenly interrupts, trembling as she reveals that Radis has returned in critical condition. Margaret's face darkens with annoyance rather than worry. She reluctantly leaves to check on her daughter. Talk about a terrible mother. 500 years ago, legendary heroes saved the empire from monsters, passing Daman's weapons through the Tilrod lineage. The world believes David is that brave savior, but his glory is a complete lie. When the servant begs to fetch a doctor, Margaret slaps her without hesitation. She harshly snarls, "If the truth is exposed, will you take the fall?" She then commands the maid to burn the bloody armor immediately. Gazing at her unconscious child, Margaret flashes a sinister smile. She murmurs, "Ah, poor Radis. After spending her entire life bleeding for her ungrateful family, Radis is abandoned to die alone. Is this really how her sacrifice ends?" Yurhi doesn't hold back, exposing how David leached off Radis's 6 years of brutal monster hunts. Every title, achievement, and magic stone brought home was bought with his sister's blood while he stole the glory. When David bristles and asks, "Did you just call me a coward?" Yurhi mocks him even further. He furiously yells that Radis fought of her own free will. Can you believe this guy's nerve? Enraged, David violently grabs Yurki by her hair, screaming, "Shut your mouth." They viciously brawl and tear into each other while their dying sister lies abandoned down the hall. I honestly cannot stand this awful family. Meanwhile, as her life fades away, Radis remembers the horrific truth behind her final mission. She was deliberately sent into the forest's forbidden zone, where her entire squad was slaughtered. High-tier monsters exhaled deadly miasma that is now rapidly creeping across her arm. She fought poison before, but this rot is fatal. Was her whole life just one endless trap? Margaret dismissively tells her to drink soup and sleep it off, refusing any medical aid. But Radis weakly clutches a hidden magic stone, quietly resolving, this time it won't be that easy to endure. Suddenly, a spectacular burst of blinding magic erupts right from the stone in her hand, leaving her cruel mother gasping in absolute shock. Radis presents a massive, glowing magic stone retrieved from her final expedition, a rare treasure worth an astronomical sum. Margaret's eyes instantly light up with intense greed as she eagerly cradles the radiant gem in her hands. Desperate to survive the deadly rot, Radis begs her mother to use the stone's immense worth to secretly hire a defrocked priest. Clinging to hope, she prays, "If I can only receive the purification, I will be fine." As days slip away, the miasma poisons her body. Whenever Radis anxiously asks about the priest's arrival, Margaret dismissively reassures her that someone was dispatched. But why hasn't anyone come? Lying in agony as the corruption spreads across her shoulder, the horrifying reality hits Radis like a dagger. Margaret never intended to save her. She used the stone to buy herself extravagant emerald jewelry instead. With tearful desperation, Radis weakly chokes out, Why are you doing this to me?" Margaret stands beside the bed, looking down with chilling indifference, completely unmoved by her child's dying agony. Staring up at her mother's cold gaze, a devastating truth shatters Radis's heart. She wasn't just an inadequate daughter. To Margaret Tilrod, Radis was simply an unwanted mistake she never once desired. Margaret doted lovingly on her son David and would give Yurhi the world. But as for Radis, she was viewed as an irritating eyesore, callously discarded without a second thought. Radis understood she was used as a disposable tool. Still, she spent her entire life striving, running up an endless staircase toward a family that never opened their arms. Why couldn't she be held too? Lying in agony, Radis weakly asks for her father. Margaret sneers that he is off visiting another woman's house. Stepping into the hallway, her mother turns back with a sinister smile, whispering, "They say it is the flower laid upon a maiden's grave." The fatal miasma completely consumes her body. As her spirit detaches in tears, the oppressive rules of her childhood echo around her. Be devoted to your parents, stay quiet, and sacrifice everything. Eldest daughters get no place at the table. Believing happiness waited at the end of her suffering was all a hollow dream. Tearing at her hair in agonizing grief, Radis screams into the void, "I should have lived for myself." With that final realization, her tragic first life comes to an end. As a surge of mysterious light envelops her dying body, Radis confronts one final, devastating realization. Tears spill from her eyes as she reflects on a lifetime of unrequited devotion and endless suffering. Clinging to her lingering regrets, her soul dissolves into the radiant magic. She cries out in her heart, "In the moment of my death, I regretted every moment of my life." And then everything fades away. Soft morning sunshine streams into a quiet bedroom as birds sing outside the window. Radis slowly opens her eyes, blinking against the bright daylight. Sitting up in a soft bed, she realizes the deadly miasma rot is completely gone. Her body is unscarred and whole. Has she really returned to 16? This time, she will carve her own path. Radis was born into a cold estate devoid of warmth, raised from parents bound only by a bitter arranged marriage. Margaret detested everything about her husband Jade, from his haggard face to his shabby rundown mansion. How could anyone expect love to grow in a house like this? Jade was once a knight, but a past injury left him limping around the estate, which only fueled Margaret's endless contempt. Her disgust turned into sharp betrayal when she discovered his daily secret. Every single afternoon, he snuck away to a flower shop just to hold another woman in his arms. Explosive arguments shattered what little peace remained in the household. Margaret screamed that he should have just married his lover instead of dragging her into this misery. But Jade didn't even turn around as he put on his coat, coldly answering, "Stop it, the feeling is mutual." Both parents secretly hoped a firstborn son would offer some salvation for their failed union. Instead, Margaret gave birth to a daughter. Disgusted by the newborn, Jade abandoned the room without a second glance. Left alone, Margaret stared at the infant and coldly ordered her maids, "Get rid of her." Exiled from her mother's sight while still a nursing infant, the young child was left to be raised by sympathetic servants. They washed clothes while whispering, in pity, dismayed that her parents hadn't even bothered to name her. "Honestly, if her family doesn't want her, I'll step in and raise her myself." One sunny afternoon, the maids looked up from their chores and panicked when the toddler vanished. They searched the grounds frantically until one maid peeked behind a brick wall. There lay the unnamed little girl, sleeping peacefully among glowing blossoms while holding a tiny pink flower in her small hand. Looking down at the nameless child resting among bright gladiolus blossoms, the gentle maid couldn't bear calling her just Miss any longer. As the toddler babbled at the petals, an idea struck her. How about Radis? A radiant smile instantly burst across the little girl's face. Years passed, and estate guests soon complained about the young girl wandering aimlessly through the mansion halls. When Margaret finally ordered her brought forward, she glared down with pure revulsion. To her, this unwanted daughter was nothing more than an unpleasant intruder in her home. At the dining table, every minor slip brought a harsh slap against her small hands. Screaming that she couldn't stand the sight of her, Margaret chased the weeping toddler out of the dining room. Terrified and hurt, Radis scrambled away down the cold marble hallway. Hiding in a dark corner, the trembling child grabbed a passing servant's skirt, sobbing softly, "Mother hates me." If a child feels this unloved in her own house, who wouldn't feel their heart break? Panic surged through the maid as she realized the depth of the child's grief. Kneeling down, the maid held her small hands and tried desperately to soften the blow. There are no parents in the world who hate their own flesh and blood. She reassured her that Mother was only angry over tiny mistakes, promising that trying harder would solve everything. That fatal misunderstanding took root deep inside her young heart. Radis believed every single word. She convinced herself that her mother's cruelty was her own fault, choosing to endure every harsh rebuke without complaint. Can a child's love really survive on such empty hope? From that moment on, every stern word became a silent test. Gripping her dress tightly in anxiety, she constantly questioned herself after every outburst. What did she do wrong this time? Was it spilling her food or simply existing in her mother's sight? Was I just in the way? Constantly second-guessing her every breath, young Maratis wandered the drafty halls alone, thoroughly convinced that her mother's endless resentment was entirely her own fault. Suddenly, shouts of joy echoed across the courtyard as servants scrambled to announce the big news. "It's a boy!" The male heir had arrived, plunging the estate into instant festival preparations while Radis stood silently in the garden. Tiptoeing toward the nursery doors, Radis peeked inside and witnessed a rare moment of peace. Jade presented a bright bouquet while Margaret cradled her newborn son. Smiling gently from the doorway, Radis whispered to herself, "Mother and father look so happy." That brief warmth vanished the instant Margaret caught her eldest daughter peeking through the frame. Her affectionate smile hardened into pure, icy malice. Terrified by that dark stare, Regressed turned and ran away as fast as her small feet could carry her. Is there room for her? Years slipped by, bringing another cold winter and the birth of a second daughter. Looking down at the golden hair and green eyes of her baby girl, Margaret beamed with pride, declaring, "She's my spitting image." Talk about glaring favoritism. When the time came to hire a live-in tutor for her precious son David, Margaret carefully reviewed the household expenses. Realizing one instructor could teach two children for the exact same fee, she reluctantly permitted Radis to join, figuring the girl might become useful in the future. Her little brother David constantly screamed and fled from the study room during lessons. But Radis remained glued to her chair, clinging to this rarest opportunity. Leaning across the desk with bright eyes, she asked, "Teacher, how do you do this?" Knowledge was her sanctuary. The private tutor praised Radis's exceptional intelligence to Margaret, warmly suggesting the brilliant young girl could easily target the prestigious Capital Academy. But Margaret instantly exploded in rage. She furiously snapped that Radis was 2 years older than David, brushing off her daughter's sharp mind as pure luck before storming away in disgust. Talent meant nothing to a bitter mother. During dinner, Jade gently urged 8-year-old David to take up swordsmanship for their family's knightly heritage in the dangerous South. Margaret immediately turned on her limping husband, calling him a cripple right in front of the children. Cupping David's cheeks with suffocating pride, she insisted, "You'll become a great knight." Will her toxic obsession ruin her son too? To handle David's martial training, the family brought in Armano, a handsome new instructor. But the lesson fell apart in seconds. Armano barely finished introducing himself before little David bolted straight across the lawn. "If you ask me, this spoiled kid needs a serious wake-up call." Instead of picking up a sword, David collapsed lazily onto the grass. Patience running thin, Armano knelt beside the boy and handed him a wooden training sword. But David threw a childish temper tantrum, hacking wild blows against the instructor's legs while screaming nasty insults. Rubbing his throbbing temple in utter frustration, Armano questioned his entire life choices. How could anyone possibly teach such an uncooperative child? Suddenly, a sharp breeze rustled the leaves, drawing Armano's gaze toward the edge of the woods. His breath caught in his throat. Hidden among the trees, young Radis was practicing all by herself, executing clean sword strikes with a simple wooden branch. Astounded by her flawless posture and innate flair, he whispered to himself, "Who is that child?" The sword instructor is caught completely off guard by Radis's natural skill and flawless footwork. As she startledly pulls back her stick and begins to retreat across the lawn, he hastily reaches out to stop her. "Would you like to learn together?" he asks with an encouraging smile, convinced her dedication might finally motivate her reluctant brother David. Radis stands wide-eyed as his genuine words of praise sink deep into her heart. In all her 16 years, no one in her family has ever acknowledged her efforts. Her eyes sparkle with quiet emotion as the unexpected compliment brightens her entire world. Could someone in this household truly see her worth? As a sudden breeze sweeps through the garden, the instructor gazes at her in overwhelming awe. He realizes she inherits the legendary flame of Alexis Tilrod, a divine power dormant for 500 long years. This young girl holding a simple wooden stick is no ordinary student. She is a genius. Later that evening in the quiet hallway, a worried house servant pulls the instructor aside to deliver a stern warning. She urges him never to compliment Lady Radis again, warning that he will be dismissed without a recommendation if the master finds out. "Honestly, this family makes my skin crawl." He politely thanks her for the advice, yet secretly vows never to let such talent rot away. Determined to help her flourish, he takes the time to personally refine her stance and balance. Guiding her hands on the wooden sword, he explains that her blade must stand firm between the enemy in front of her and the things she must protect behind her. Every word reinforces her resolve. Above all else, he imparts one vital truth that will alter her destiny forever. He gently reminds her that the most important thing she must protect is you, Radis. Standing tall with her weapon raised, she makes a silent pledge to live solely for her own future from this day forward. Radis clashes blades with her instructor, carefully digesting his unexpected advice to protect herself above all else. She catches her breath in total disbelief, struggling to grasp the concept. How is she supposed to put herself first when sacrifice is all her family ever demanded? Seeing her quiet shock, the instructor offers a bright, encouraging smile. Radis can barely hold back her overwhelming emotion as a tearful grin breaks across her face. For the first time in 16 long years, someone genuinely acknowledges her relentless efforts. Nearby, David lounges lazily in the cool shade of a tree. He hums and chuckles to himself while watching her sweat, treating her grueling training session as nothing more than a private comedy show. Honestly, is he serious right now? Later, inside the mansion parlor, the mother proudly asks the instructor about sending David to the elite Imperial Academy. The father wonders if 10 years old is a bit too early, but the instructor lowers his head, knowing the uncomfortable truth must finally be spoken. He bows deeply before delivering the harsh verdict. No, it won't happen no matter how old he gets. He bluntly reveals that David possesses zero talent for swordsmanship, while Radis is the true prodigy who belongs at the academy. A terrifying dark shadow falls over the mother's face. The instructor insists Radis inherits the legendary flame of Alexis Tilrod and far outshines her brother. This unbearable reality shatters her obsession with favoring David. Her fury erupts instantly. Shaking off her husband's arm, she screams Radis's name at the top of her lungs and storms straight into the hallway. Before Radis can even react, a brutal slap cracks right across her cheek. The mother screeches out vile accusations, calling her a sly fox who seduced the teacher, while the rest of the household looks on in silent shock. The husband hastily steps in to restrain his wife, but the rage exploding in the hallway cannot be stopped. The mother strikes the sword instructor across the face, firing him on the spot. She then turns her venom on Radis, screaming, "You wronged my son!" Carrying his briefcase outside the estate gates, the instructor leaves behind a household consumed by darkness. Inside the parlor, the mother collapses onto the floor in hysterical weeping. She grabs Radis tightly by the arm, blaming her for destroying David's future and wasting years of effort. If you had just taught him properly, he would have been easily admitted. Is there truly no end to her cruelty? Looming over her daughter with a dark aura, the mother issues a chilling command. You do it! She orders Radis to disguise herself and take the Imperial Academy entrance exam in David's place. Radis stammers in complete shock. Her entire world shatters. Striding across the parlor, the mother opens a wooden drawer and pulls out a pair of sharp dressmaking scissors. She drops them onto the table, coldly explaining that their facial features and heights are similar. Once she is wrapped in heavy steel armor, no one at the academy will ever notice the swap. The mother demands immediate obedience. You are the eldest daughter of the Tilrod family. She insists that sacrificing her life for her brother's future is her ultimate duty as the eldest child. Honestly, watching this woman manipulate her makes my stomach turn. In that tragic memory of her past life, 16-year-old Radis clings to the desperate hope of finally being loved. Tears spill down her bruised cheeks as she thinks, "I'm really mother's child," moved simply because her mother called her daughter. Taking the scissors, she cuts her long hair, falsely believing this sacrifice will win her family's affection. Lock by lock, her long crimson hair falls silently onto the floor. Disguised in sharp masculine clothing, Qin Chistril Rod sets off to take the elite academy entrance exam in her brother's place. Standing near the carriage steps, Ermerd gives her a rare, tight-lipped compliment. Good job. Radis glows with quiet emotion, her heart swelling at those simple words. In all her 16 long years, it is the very first time her mother has ever acknowledged her relentless efforts. Is this the warmth she has desperately chased her entire life? Honestly, seeing her cling to such scraps breaks my heart. Later in her quiet bedroom, Radis pens a thoughtful letter to her former sword instructor, Teacher Armano. She thanks him for recognizing her talent and deeply apologizes for his sudden firing. "I really hope you find another good job." But just as she finishes writing, her mother quietly steps inside. When Armano sends a reply, her mother intercepts the letter, holding the sealed envelope with a dark and menacing glare. As her mother suddenly steps forward and raises her hand, Rodis instinctively flinches, bracing herself for another painful slap. Is she not going to hit me? Instead of striking her face, her mother holds Armano's letter over a candle flame, burning his words to ashes right before her eyes. The instructor's warmth vanishes into thin air. Radis watches in stunned silence as her last lingering hope of being loved dies alongside those flickering embers. 4 years quickly pass after David graduates from the academy as a trainee knight. But instead of acting like a nobleman, he throws a colossal tantrum inside the room. "I don't want to go," he screams in total panic. His mother tries reassuring him that hunting monsters is mandatory for knighthood, yet he grips his hair in utter terror. He dreads the poisonous demonic energy emitted by monsters, and the months required to heal from bloody wounds. Paying a priest for a temple blessing costs a massive fortune. Do they even have that kind of money? Even the promise of valuable mana stones dropped by monsters fails to calm his cowardice. How shameless can one brother be? Seeing her son's persistent panic, their mother rubs her forehead as a dark scheme takes root. Meanwhile, out in the quiet backyard, Rodis finds the only place in the house where she can feel at ease. She carefully carves her own wooden practice sword with a small knife. Even without a real blade or master, she tirelessly refines her swordsmanship alone. Her solitary training abruptly comes to a halt as heavy footsteps approach from behind. A sinister voice breaks the quiet evening air. "I heard the Lord of Wens is looking for a wife," her mother announces, stepping into view. Her mother looms in the shadows like a dark specter, laying out her malicious transaction. The Lord requires no dowry and promises a generous territory reward for a healthy young bride. Sounds simple, right? Then the devastating catch is revealed. The prospective groom is 70 years old. He may be 70, but he's still full of vigor, her mother insidiously claims. Rada stands rooted in total horror, her breath catching as the tragic trap snaps shut around her. Radis tightly grips her wooden sword as her mother lays out a cruel alternative. "Then go hunt monsters in David's place," her mother demands coldly. If Radis risks her life taking her brother's place on the front lines, she will be allowed to remain in the family home. Forced onto the deadly battlefields, disguised as her cowardly brother, Radis faces ferocious demonic beasts. She fights with fierce determination, turning raw instinct into lethal swordplay as monsters swarm around her. She refuses to break. Captain Robert of the Imperial Subjugation Force trains her relentlessly to keep her alive. When he pats her helmet and praises her impressive skills, Radis feels a rare spark of pride behind her visor. Is a stranger's recognition all she ever needed? She quietly accepts his praise under her brother's stolen name. Back home, her mother joyfully celebrates David's supposed knightly success, completely blind to who is actually bleeding on the battlefield. Meanwhile, debts mount rapidly from her brother's extravagant spending and her father's failed business ventures. The family budget rests entirely on Radis's blood money. Radis endures campaign after brutal campaign to finance her sister Yurhi's lavish wedding dress, expensive jewelry, and massive dowry. Her parents treat her life-threatening struggles as an endless financial supply. There is no escape for her. Her exceptional combat achievements earn her an official promotion to vice captain of the Imperial Subjugation Force. Cheering soldiers raise their fists around her as Captain Robert warmly claps her shoulder armor. "I'm counting on you, Dee." As she marches proudly through the cheering crowd, her body quietly rots away from toxic demonic energy, while David reaps every bit of praise. Will anyone ever realize who truly saved them? Honestly, watching her give up her youth for that ungrateful family breaks my heart. As the memory of her lonely death haunts her, Radis recalls how David stole all her hard-earned glory as the flame sword. Even while her body rotted away from poisonous demonic energy, she was denied proper medical care. She died completely alone on that cold bed. Suddenly, Radis gasps awake in bed. Her agonizing pain is gone, and her hands are smooth without a single swordsman's callus. No priest could ever heal body damage so completely. How could her broken body feel this light? Hurrying across the wooden floor, she picks up a small hand mirror and gazes at her reflection. She has short, red hair and a youthful face without a scratch. Is this me from 10 years ago? She has traveled back to her 16-year-old self in her old attic. Uncertain if this miracle is a dream or a final dying illusion, Radis steps up to the window. Down below, servants hustle through the estate grounds carrying fresh flowers and silver platters. Could today be the exact day her tragic past began? Downstairs, her mother excitedly claps her gloved hands together in a magnificent gown. Everything has to be perfect today. She aggressively barks orders at nervous maids because the academy admissions officer is arriving to evaluate David. Little Yurhi stares wide-eyed at a giant multi-tiered cake before her mother pulls her into an affectionate embrace. "You're here, my beautiful child." If you ask me, seeing how lavishly her mother treats everyone except Radis makes my stomach turn. When her mother asks about David, Yurhi claims he is in the study, making her mother proudly imagine him studying. But Yurhi admits he was actually taking a lazy nap outdoors. Her mother's proud expression snaps into furious rage. He couldn't care less. As Yurhi prepares to go wake her brother, she hesitates and asks why Radis isn't gathered with the rest of the family. Her mother scoffs in total disgust. She doesn't matter, she'd just ruin the perfect occasion. Can you believe how casually she excludes her eldest daughter? Even the old gardener was invited in his finest suit. Moments later, admissions officer Klein from the Imperial Academy greets the noble couple with a warm, professional smile. He handshakes her father while delivering the official Academy admissions certificate. Her mother glows with arrogant pride, eagerly soaking up every bit of praise about her precious son. Everything seems to be unfolding just as she planned. When Klein asks to see young David, heavy steel boots clank loudly down the grand staircase. A knight in full armor walks into the sunlit hall. Officer Klein marvels at the warrior's imposing posture, comparing his talent to Sir Alexis Tilrod, the legendary flame sword. Sounds impressive, right? Suddenly, the armored warrior draws a gleaming blade without uttering a word. Her mother pales in utter confusion and shrieks in total panic. "David, what kind of prank is this?" She frantically orders him to put the sword away immediately. The knight refuses to move an inch. Behind the heavy steel visor, bright crimson hair spills out as Radis quietly exhales a calm breath. It was never David standing inside that armor. She opens her sharp red eyes and fixes her unyielding gaze directly on the center of the giant celebration cake. With one lightning-fast strike, Radis unleashes a fierce sword wave straight across the grand hall. The blinding arc cuts through their extravagant feast in a single instant. She will never be their sacrificial shadow again. A heavy steel blade crashes violently down through the middle of the elaborate celebration cake, sending sugary white frosting flying across the hall. The mother shrieks in horror as cream spatters across her expensive gown, while her husband steps forward furiously to demand why David would act so recklessly. They still firmly believe their spoiled son stands inside that suit of armor. Without offering a single word of explanation, the knight steps toward the crowd and demands the official admission certificate. The officer stammers nervously as he reaches into his navy jacket, pulling out the document to hand over. Everyone in the grand hall watches in complete silence as the armored figure takes the paper into gloved hands. Did they really think their deceit would succeed? The certificate clearly displays David's name as the accepted candidate for the prestigious academy. But in one swift motion, the knight grabs the official document and tears it into tiny pieces. Her mother cries out in utter desperation as the paper scraps flutter down onto the ruined cake. A calm voice cuts through the panicked room. The heavy steel helmet unclasps and comes off, revealing vibrant red hair underneath. Radis looks her family straight in the eyes and proudly proclaims, "I am not David Tilrod. My name is Radis." The entire room freezes in total disbelief as her identity is revealed to everyone present. Honestly, watching her abusive family's arrogant faces collapse is incredibly satisfying. Radis turns her gaze toward Mr. Klein Rockton and reminds him of the day he kindly directed her to the practical exam grounds. She stands tall before him with unwavering confidence. "It wasn't David under this armor back then either. It was me all along." Her direct confession exposes the stolen identity right in front of the entire assembly. The mother turns on her panicked servant in a rage, screaming at her for keeping such a crucial piece of information hidden until this very moment. Meanwhile, Klein's attention quickly shifts toward the grand staircase as a new voice speaks up. Is the true admissions officer finally taking control of this chaotic situation? A well-dressed man strides confidently down the grand staircase with his arms open wide to address the entire hall. He announces with a warm, firm smile, "Yes, that would be me." The true admissions authority has finally stepped forward to shatter every single lie told by the Tilrod family. As the truth echoes across the grand hall, the pristine reputation built for David completely crumbles into dust. Radis stands tall in her heavy armor, watching her mother panic so severely that she faints straight into her maid's frantic arms. Honestly, watching her abusive family's arrogant faces collapse like this is deeply therapeutic. Escaping the public commotion up to her quiet attic bedroom, Radis unclasps her heavy steel helmet and lets it bounce across the carpeted floor. She sprawls back onto her mattress in full armor, letting out a contented sigh of relief while smiling up at the ceiling. Wow, that was pathetically easy. Lying peacefully in the sunlit room, she closes her eyes and rests her head against the soft pillow. She genuinely believes this sweet moment of revenge is just a fleeting hallucination right before her final breath. If this is really just a dying dream, shouldn't she have rebelled like this from the very start? Her quiet moment shatters when the heavy wooden door violently slams open with a deafening crash. Her mother stands in the doorway with an expression of pure malice, her expensive gown still splattered with ruined cake cream. Screaming that Radis sabotaged David's golden future, she lunges forward and delivers a brutal slap straight across her daughter's face. Overwhelmed by fury over the ruined admission, the woman violently grabs Radis by her vibrant red hair and yanks her head back without a single trace of maternal mercy. A dark claw reflects in Radis's wise, trembling eyes as her mother shrieks, "You worthless wretch, you deserve to drop dead!" Radis sits up on her bed, clutching her throbbing cheek as sharp, searing pain radiates straight through her head. For a mere hallucination before death, this physical agony is far too visceral. The pain is real. Out of all the relentless abuse she suffered, this cruel blow cuts the deepest. Her eyes snap open as a single, undeniable truth pierces through the dark fog in her mind. This is no final fantasy before the grave. She has truly traveled back in time to her 16-year-old self, and this time she will live for herself. As her mother lunges forward to deliver a violent slap, Radis catches her wrist mid-air with an iron grip. The woman recoils in utter shock, her face twisting with rage as she struggles to break free from her daughter's hold. She screams furiously, "You think earning one measly certificate gives you the right to act so damn arrogant?" But Radis does not flinch for a single second. With a bitter smile, Radis steps forward and forces the woman backward step by step. She confronts her mother with every single sacrifice she made, recalling the grueling night training and bloody subjugation missions she endured just to win her love. Radis shouts, "I only endured it all because you were supposed to be my mother. I swallowed it all down right to the bitter end." Radis releases her wrist, letting her mother slump powerlessly onto the carpeted floor. Looming over her in heavy steel armor, Radis looks down calmly and proudly declares, "I am done holding back." Her mother shrieks in hysterical fury, commanding the staff to kill her. Panicked servants scramble into the room to drag their screaming mistress away. Honestly, watching Radis finally stand up to her abuser is deeply satisfying. 3 full days pass while Radis remains locked inside her attic bedroom, quietly testing her reality. A rude maid aggressively slams down a tray of cold slop, scolding her for picking at her meal like a beggar. Radis pays little attention to the insult. Spending 3 consecutive days waking up in this 16-year-old body proves this is no fleeting dream before death. Pain and hunger are far too real. Seeing Elaine standing alive and breathing right before her eyes serves as the ultimate proof of time travel. In her previous life, this maid was brutally murdered, yet here she stands, smugly lecturing Graditis for stressing her mother. Does this insolent servant honestly think Radis is still the same submissive girl? She could not be more wrong. Radis meets Elaine's arrogant glare with complete composure. She quietly asks, "I guess I've been a bit too docile up until now, haven't I, Elaine?" Before the maid can even process the sudden shift in tone, Radis lifts the bowl and dumps the entire slimy meal straight onto her head. She will never let anyone mistreat her ever again. Holding out the empty dish with a radiant smile, Radis looks right at her maid and delivers her final declaration. "But you see, I've decided I'm not going to be their punching bag anymore." Honestly, good for her. She is done suffering for them. From this moment on, her life belongs to her alone. The bowl of foul slop clatters onto the carpet, splashing across the floor. Elaine cringes on the ground, terrified as cold bare feet approach her. Her mother is currently bedridden because of Radis, and her father is busy cleaning up the mess. Radis stoops over the trembling maid with a chilling look. "I guess no one would be able to help you, would they?" A swift flick to her forehead shatters the terrifying atmosphere. Elaine hiccups in shock while Radis looks down with unbothered eyes. Is she finally realizing that her old power over the house is gone? Honestly, the maid had this coming after years of spiteful cruelty. In her original lifetime, taking her brother David's place in monster hunts gave Rodis her first taste of leverage. Her very first demand back then was getting Elaine dismissed from the household. Yet carrying the secret of the Tilrod family ultimately led to the maid's grim death in the forest. Right now, Elaine is still just a child who yields whenever she gets fed. Watching the trembling servant, Rodis rubs her forehead in exhaustion. Cruelty can wait. Pointing toward the mess, she issues a sharp directive. Take this garbage away and bring me some real food. Before long, a warm tray bearing hot soup and fresh bread is brought inside. Elaine hovers near the wall, stunned into silence by the sudden shift in power. Radis tastes the food calmly before throwing a cold look back. What are you doing? You can leave now. Quiet falls over the small room. Radis sits alone by her bed and slowly stirs the spoon through the broth. The rich warmth of the soup and soft bread confirm that this isn't some fading dream. In her past life, demonic energy poisoning killed her at 26 after years of suffering for a family that abandoned her. But now she has returned to her 16-year-old self. She will live for herself. Sitting quietly on the edge of her bed, Radis gazes into space and wonders why she was granted this second life. Why did I come back? What, is this supposed to be a chance for revenge? She doesn't even want revenge. The relentless bullying was painful, but that wasn't what truly broke her heart. In her past lifetime, she dragged her battered body through muddy battlefields during forced monster hunts. She bore demonic energy poisoning as her body slowly rotted away, believing every sacrifice was necessary. Meanwhile, her family shared bright, cozy smiles that never once included her. Nobody cared about her sacrifice. The real agony came from watching her parents shower endless love on her sister while leaving her in the dark. Reaching out from the shadows toward that unreachable warmth, tears fill her eyes. I thought if I did a good job until the very end, they might actually love me just a little bit. Honestly, that breaks my heart. Shifting away from her tray, Radis resolves to stop begging for affection. To her parents and siblings, her existence means nothing. Even if she remains here and continues to bleed for them, the tragic outcome will never change. She has to get out. Panic strikes her face the moment reality sets in. But how and where to? Her whole world has been confined to the cramped Tilrod fief of Willingham and the deadly forest where she hunted monsters. Sounds practically impossible, doesn't it? Pacing barefoot back and forth across the room, she weighs her chances. The forest is full of danger, but living among monsters is far more peaceful than staying with her abusive family. Out on the outskirts where beasts are scarce, small groups of settlers survive by farming. If she offers her hunting skills to protect them, they might welcome her in. Freedom comes first. A light bulb goes off in her head. A few years in the future, didn't one of those humble settlers strike it rich by growing a legendary terror farm? If she heads to the forest now, she can secure her own freedom and build a fortune of her own. In her past life, an isolated cherry orchard made a fortune after a severe pest outbreak wiped out every other farm. Investing there now would secure her freedom forever. But reality hurts. She is 16, locked in her room, and doesn't have a single coin. Lying by her dormer window, Radis groans in frustration. How can she escape without any money to her name? Downstairs in the cozy parlor, a completely different world exists. While Mother rests on the sofa, her favored younger daughter Yurhi flips through a catalog, demanding a yellow dress for Prince Olivier's birthday banquet. That bold demand triggers an instant explosion. Mother screams about the money wasted trying to clean up David's academy failure. When told to wear an old gown, Yurhi throws a dramatic tantrum on the floor. Spoiled much? To protect the family name, her parents lied and claimed Radis acted out of jealousy toward her brother. But the sharp admissions examiner saw right through it, canceling David's entry and leaving their pockets empty. Fuming over the lost fortune, Mother bitterly spat out, "That wretched girl." Little Yurhi catches only the sharp tone, her eyes filling with tears as she wonders if her mother meant her. Panicking at her daughter's tears, Mother rushes over to comfort her. All right, Mom will buy you the dress." Sniffling softly, Yurhi points to her choice. Honestly, the favoritism is painful to watch. Looking over the catalog, Mother gasps at her younger daughter's extravagant choice. "My goodness, you have expensive taste," she yields softly, instantly soothing the spoiled child's tears. Favoritism at its absolute finest, isn't it? She will give Yurhi whatever she wants, no matter how broke they are. Suddenly, her comforting mask slips away as her eyes harden into a cold, sharp glare. A sinister smirk creeps across her face. Honestly, I can tell she is plotting something terrible. Unwilling to let the humiliating financial loss from David's academy rejection go, her cruel mind settles on a dangerous new scheme. Leaping out onto the balcony barefoot, Radis raises her hand to shield her eyes from the dazzling morning sun. For years in her past life, demonic poison rotted her body while her family demanded endless sacrifices. Now, breathing feels effortless. Her body is completely whole. She looks at her smooth, unblemished skin and softly whispers, "Ah, I didn't know not being in pain could feel this good." Her past life was a nightmare of cruelty and neglect. Demonic poison slowly ruined her organs after fighting monsters, yet her selfish parents refused to pay the temple for purification rituals. Instead, they forced her to suffer so her brother David could maintain his reputation, and her sister Yurhi could secure a massive dowry. Honestly, family like that makes my skin crawl. Eventually, her vision faded, and her skin rotted away. To survive that agonizing decay back then, Radis desperately taught herself to convert the accumulated monster energy inside her into usable mana. She barely mastered that skill at 24, and it only bought her a brief respite before death. But was that rare talent purely luck? Raising her hand now, vibrant flames of mana instantly flare around her fingers at just 16. She swings the burning mana blade downward in a fierce, sweeping strike. Bright sparks scatter across the stone balcony as her technique ignites with incredible force. She isn't just surviving anymore. Armed with both mana and masterful swordsmanship in her young body, she possesses strength few could ever match. Her sword style was passed down by her former mentor, Master Armano. During their intense lessons, he continually emphasized the true purpose of her blade. He smiled warmly and instructed her, "Radis, the essence of this swordsmanship is protection. You must never let it boil over and rage like crashing waves. You must always leave enough strength to protect what's behind you." Back then, she nodded with deep respect while parrying his wooden blade in the open field. Standing resolute in the present sunlight, those gentle words echo in her heart once more. The core of her power is protection. But now that she has turned back time, who will she choose to guard with her blade? In her past life, Master Armano was the first person who acknowledged her hard work. Sparring in the sunlit meadow, he marveled at her growth, declaring she kept up better than anyone he had ever trained. She deeply cherished his praise when he smiled and said, "I'm truly proud of you." Leaning against the balcony railing, Radis wonders if having loving parents would have felt like Armano's gentle guidance. She resolves to find a secret way to exchange letters with her former mentor as soon as possible. Her quiet reflection is interrupted when a maid timidly enters, trembling as she stammers out that she brought breakfast. Radis politely thanks her, surprised by the luxurious spread of bacon, eggs, and hot soup. Threatening to abandon the family yesterday certainly altered their behavior overnight. Honestly, watching them panic is pretty satisfying. Just as Radis dismisses her, the maid hesitates and whispers that their mother prepared a special gift box, naively assuming her mistress intends to forgive Radis. Does she really expect Radis to care about her mother's forgiveness? Forgive her? Radis scoffs at the absurdity. As a child, she was locked inside a pitch-black room for a week over minor mistakes, never once receiving a birthday present. Her mother never prepares gifts without a selfish motive. In her former timeline, her naive younger self briefly wondered if her desperate cries had finally reached her mother's cold heart. But that supposed gift was merely a hideous, gaudy dress forced upon her while her mother gloated, "I'm far too generous." In her memory, Yurhi shrieked at her for wearing a heavily discounted catalog dress, warning Radis not to stand anywhere near her at the banquet. Radis sat in total silence in the ridiculous pink gown, finally seeing how foolish she had been to hope for affection. When Yurhi arrogantly demanded to be addressed properly as a sister, Radis didn't even flinch. Her mother immediately bristled at her defiance, snapping back with furious outrage at her sudden change in attitude. Radis calmly delivered her crushing retort, "You have to act like a sister for me to call you one." Turning toward her mother, she added, "I suppose I can call you Margaret." Respect was something earned, not demanded. Her mother nearly threw out her back, screaming at her ungrateful daughter. Honestly, watching them lose their minds over simple truth is hilarious. But back then, Radis had spent years carrying the burden of everyone's failures. She used to believe her parents' constant marital strife, David's endless drunkenness, and Yurhi's selfish tantrums were all her fault. Stepping out of the carriage at the grand banquet hall back then, that heavy guilt weighed on her heart. The stiff gown felt heavier than a suit of armor on her shoulders. Did anyone actually enjoy wearing these ridiculous outfits? But as she raised her head, her eyes widened at the incredible sight before her. She had never seen an estate so magnificent. While her brother David used her achievements to socialize, she was always left trapped at home. Now, clutching her heavy dress, she stepped into a world she had never known. Radis looks down at her gaudy dress and firmly vows, "I won't let that happen anymore." Tonight marks the grand birthday celebration of 3rd Prince Olivier Arpend at Marquis Russell's estate. This night could change everything. She walks behind Margaret into the magnificent hall, fully aware of her mother's scheme. Margaret only dragged her along to humiliate her before everyone in this glaring gown. Can you really blame Radis for despising them? But Radis refuses to play the victim. As the herald loudly announces Madame Margaret Tilrode and her daughters, Radis steps forward into the light. She will no longer passively wait for a tragic fate to destroy her. If she can grasp even one opportunity tonight, she will escape her family forever. Honestly, I'm completely rooting for her freedom. Radis remembers the Imperial subjugation force all too well. In her past life, she bled endlessly in these dark woods under her brother David's name, acting as the Empire's frontline shield against monsters. Imperial support was always the bare minimum because the royal family in the north feels relatively safe. Sounds simple, right? That leaves wealthy southern lords to command their own subjugation forces. Her best opportunity lies with the prestigious Marquis Russell household. Their proud lion crest represents the strongest private subjugation force in the entire Southern Territory. If luck is on her side, Radis hopes to ask for an entrance exam. Monster hunting is all she knows. Stepping into the grand banquet hall, Radis feels the cold shift in the air immediately. Margaret sweeps through the entrance with a glittering smile, delightedly greeting Viscountess Anton and the surrounding aristocrats. She puts on a brilliant show of motherly grace, completely ignoring her eldest daughter standing awkwardly behind her. It is a lonely entrance. Is it really that surprising? The noble women instantly tilt their heads together, staring directly at Radis with disdain. Whispers ripple across the grand ballroom as they mock her ridiculous pink gown, murmuring softly among themselves, "Oh my, her dress is so..." The scoffs spread quickly. Radis tightly clasps her fingers over the cheap frilly fabric. She knows Margaret forced her into this ridiculous dress just to humiliate her in public and remind her of her place. She lets out a quiet breath. But does their scorn really matter? She won't see any of these people again after today. Across the room, Margaret spins her poisonous lies to the eager noblewomen. She claims Radis impudently stole David's exam out of petty jealousy, while her sweet David gave up his own spot, asking, "If my true skills are proven that way, what will happen to Radis's honor, mother? If he doesn't want her, I do." The gullible crowd swoons over his fake sacrifice. The noblewomen eagerly offer Margaret advice on dealing with an envious daughter. They whisper that Radis should be sent away before she negatively influences her younger siblings. Margaret smoothly nods in fake gratitude while hiding her face behind her fan, secretly mocking their absurd suggestions. Does she really care about their opinions? Standing alone beneath the grand chandeliers, Radis gazes up toward the upper balcony. She spots knights bearing the proud lion crest of the Marquis Russell household. Joining their prestigious subjugation force would solve all her problems, but just as hope flickers in her mind, a harsh grip violently yanks her arm. Margaret angrily scolds Radis for staring upward, harsh words spilling out in front of everyone. "You look like a woman of the streets." She drags Radis toward a wealthy middle-aged man, whispering that marrying him is her only remaining value to the family. Can you believe the nerve of this woman? The merchant steps forward with a sleazy, patronizing grin. Radis instantly recognizes his face and utters his name, Hover Cradium. Flattered by her instant recognition, Hover chuckles that her mother warned him she was just an innocent young lady unaccustomed to the ways of the real world. Of course she knows him all too well. In her past life, Hover was a notorious swindler who smuggled mana stones and ruthlessly cheated her family out of their fortune. As he extends his gloved hand with fake politeness, Radis looks at him with complete, chilling composure. Hover patronizingly offers to guide the helpless young lady around the grand ballroom so she does not get lost. Radis does not hesitate for a single second. She coldly cuts him off with a sharp rejection, "I prefer being alone." With that, she turns her back and walks away. Stung by her swift rejection, Hover's polite mask completely cracks into anger. He glares resentfully at her retreating back and sneers at her cheap pink dress, loudly asking if it is an outdated design he saw on sale for 90% off. Hover sneers insolently at Radis, mocking her cheap pink outfit in front of the surrounding aristocrats. He patronizingly asks if she feels embarrassed wearing such an outdated dress to the third prince's grand birthday banquet. Radis turns around calmly without flinching. She looks him in the eye and reminds him that as a 16-year-old girl, she has no choice but to wear whatever she is given. She puts him right in his place. Radis coldly tells the arrogant merchant, "You clearly don't know how to be considerate of such simple circumstances." With a graceful curtsy, she politely excuses herself from his presence, leaving the flustered swindler completely stunned in his tracks. Avoiding that dishonest swindler is her top priority. Yet Hover foolishly chases after her down the grand hallway, desperately shouting that he misspoke and pleading to talk just a little more. "Can't he just take a hint? I certainly wouldn't want to talk to him either." Radis quickens her steps, eager to escape his annoying persistence. Glancing through the grand window into the quiet moonlit garden, Radis spots a tall silhouette walking in the distance. Her heart suddenly skips a beat. Vivid memories of her former subjugation force captain rush back in an instant, and she gasps out his title in complete disbelief. "Captain?" Tightly gathering her heavy frilly skirt, Radis rushes toward the courtyard entrance as fast as her legs will carry her. It makes no rational sense for her former commander to attend a lavish aristocratic banquet in the south. Still, her feet carry her forward into the cool night air before her mind can stop her. Bursting beneath the opened night sky, Radis catches her breath among the quiet garden arbors while leaves flutter in the wind. Nobody is there. She simply mistook a stranger's shadow. Shaking off the sudden ache in her chest, Radis turns back toward the grand ballroom. There is no way Robert would be here tonight, and she still has a crucial entrance exam to request. Rushing through the grand hallway in those clumsy, unfamiliar shoes, Radis's ankle suddenly twists right beneath her. She completely loses her balance and tumbles onto the polished marble floor with a painful thud. How embarrassing! As she frantically tries to gather her sprawling, frilly skirt, she notices a pair of dark boots standing directly beside her. Her face burns with utter mortification. Can you believe a former vice captain of the Imperial subjugation force was defeated by cheap high heels? She winces while tenderly checking her painful bruised ankle. It hurts terribly. It turns out all her legendary monster hunting skills are completely useless against absurd aristocratic fashion. Radis blinks back her irritation and attempts to push herself up off the cold floor. But before she can scramble to her feet on her own, an elegant white-gloved hand gently extends into view. A soft, soothing voice breaks the quiet hallway, asking with genuine care, "Are you all right?" Radis turns her head, staring directly into the striking crimson eyes of a stunning silver-haired nobleman kneeling beside her. Softly, he murmurs, "My lady." His handsome face and unexpected warmth leave her completely frozen in place. Could this mysterious noble finally offer her the entrance exam she desperately needs, or is he someone else entirely? As Radis sits stunned on the ground, a silver-haired nobleman kneels down and extends his hand. His calm tone breaks through her confusion. Gazing up into his striking face, she finds herself completely mesmerized by his features. Is anyone really allowed to be this handsome? Noticing her frozen silence, he gently asks if she feels unwell. Radis snaps back to reality, concern while attempting to stand on her own. A sudden crack echoes beneath her skirt. Her broken heel collapses, throwing her off balance once more. Before she hits the floor, warm hands catch her shoulders, supporting her before she can tumble backward. Radis stammers out breathless thanks while clinging to his coat. He leans in closer, quietly observing her growing fluster. Her snapped heel lies beside a fresh scrape on her ankle, exposing the reason for her sudden fall. Radis apologizes repeatedly, embarrassed by her awkward stumble. He gazes down with soft understanding. "It seems today is a difficult day for you." He reaches into his jacket, retrieving a neatly folded, embroidered silk handkerchief. As he holds out the delicate cloth, he offers comforting words to lift her spirits. "Even so, if you find the courage, you might find something to gain even from a day like this." He offers the handkerchief to help clean her bleeding ankle. Radis covers her blushing face, torn between gratitude and horror at the thought of staining such fine silk with her blood. Honestly, who wouldn't panic in front of someone this charming? Will she actually accept his thoughtful gift? With a calm smile, the silver-haired nobleman gently presses the delicate silk cloth into her hand. "Please, Just take it, he urges Soph, adding that she can simply return it next time if it weighs on her mind. He bows politely before offering a quiet farewell, leaving Radis standing there completely mesmerized by his unexpected charm. As the handsome stranger turns and walks back inside, Radis watches him slowly vanish down the grand corridor. But he isn't the only one paying close attention. Shadowed against the entryway, a dark-haired soldier in a formal black uniform quietly observes the entire exchange with sharp, piercing yellow eyes. It turns out this gentle savior is actually the Empire's third prince, returning to his own grand birthday celebration. Honestly, who wouldn't want a handsome prince stepping out of nowhere to rescue them? Yet his quiet escape into the night air certainly hasn't gone unnoticed by his watchful officer. The dark-haired officer steps directly into his path with a teasing look. "Are those types actually your preference?" he asks, probing for details about the encounter outside. The prince glances back with a cool, unbothered expression, calmly claiming he has no idea what his companion means. The prince nonchalantly walks away without giving a real explanation. Calling out a cheerful birthday wish after his departing figure, the officer slowly adjusts his collar. Yet beneath his playful salute lies a dark, intense grin. Is he suspicious of Radis or something else entirely? Meanwhile, Radis cautiously peeks through the heavy doorway into the quiet hall, clutching the soft silk handkerchief to her chest while attempting to process what just happened. With her broken shoe and racing heart, she stands alone in the shadows. Something unexpected has clearly begun. Looking down at the embroidered silk, Radis realizes it is far too exquisite to stain with her own blood. Tracing the initials stitched neatly into the fabric, she finds herself wondering about the mysterious nobleman who treated her with such gentle kindness. She tightly clutches the handkerchief to her chest, holding on to his encouraging words. Suddenly, her gaze sharpens as she spots a key figure standing across the hall. Her heart leaps. Without wasting a single moment, Radis marches directly toward Lord Felice Rothschild. She introduces herself clearly as Radis of the Tilrod family. He greets her politely, though clearly bewildered by her sudden approach. She compliments his famous subjugation force for guarding the Empire before asking her true question. Are they currently accepting new soldiers? The direct request leaves him utterly speechless. Honestly, who skips the small talk at a grand ballroom event? Lord Felice rubs his chin, explaining that conscription is officially closed. Yet seeing her unwavering gaze, he smiles warmly. I can't refuse a request from such a persistent lady. He promises to send a representative to her home. Her daring gamble actually worked. Securing a spot in a noble force guarantees far better conditions and essential purification rituals for her future. Overjoyed, Radis bows low to express her sincere gratitude. Before she can celebrate, a furious nobleman barging through the crowd grabs her arm, shouting that he has been looking everywhere for her. Her brief moment of relief shatters in an instant. Will her family manage to destroy her escape plan before it even starts? Radis instantly snaps back, refusing to let the aggressive nobleman drag her around. "And what does it matter to you who I talk to?" she demands, wrenching against his tight grip. Outraged by her sudden defiance, his face contorts into a furious scowl right in front of the crowd. He violently hauls her down a secluded corridor, sneering that her mother surrendered her to his care. "You're as good as mine today," he snarls, tightening his fist to intimidate her. Does he really believe she is still the helpless girl from her past? Big mistake. Radis knocks him out cold with one swift, brutal strike. Standing over his flattened body, she sighs softly at the hassle. She wanted to avoid unnecessary violence, but this scoundrel left her with no other choice. She grabs him by the boots and drags his heavy, unconscious body into a vacant room nearby. Wiping her forehead, Radis stares down at his limp figure sprawled across the floor. Honestly, I love seeing a villain get put in his place. When he fell, several glowing magic crystals slipped from his inner jacket pocket. Radis kneels to gather them, recognizing the corrupt items he continues to peddle. In her past life, these went to her ungrateful brother, but now she will keep them for herself. The second her hand closes around the stone, radiant magical light ignites around her fingers. Radis gasps in total shock as a warm, powerful aura flares bright and swirls wildly through the shadowy room. Surrounded by shimmering light, she watches the magic crystal lose its demonic energy entirely. Within moments, the drained gem crumbles into harmless gray dust right inside her palm. Her long-suppressed power is finally beginning to awaken. As Radis kneels beside the unconscious cranium, the glowing purple massastone in her hands suddenly lose their brilliance. The dark energy inside them vanishes into thin air, turning the once precious gems into brittle, lifeless dust. They're losing their demonic energy. Does her body possess the miraculous ability to absorb raw monster power? She quickly reaches for another stone, crushing it between her fingertips as dark smoke curls into the air. Instantly, a warm surge ripples straight to her heart, causing her inner core to illuminate with a brilliant white light. This sensation? No, it can't be. Her heart thumps wildly. Driven by sudden realization, Rada snatches up the silk pouch to inspect the rest of her stash. Multicolored crystals spill across the floor as she eagerly reaches for more. I have to check. If her body can truly consume demonic mana, everything changes for her future. Honestly, I wouldn't leave a single stones behind either. Outside, the heavy carriage rides quietly through the dark forest path under the night sky. Radis looks down at the passed-out Cradium, amazed by how effortlessly he deceived everyone around her for years. How could she have been so naive in her past life? He was a fraud. Recalling past whispers about Cradium's secret storehouse, Radis begins searching the quiet study while he remains out cold on the floor. She notices a single worn volume tucked tightly into the bookshelf and pulls it forward. The secret mechanism yields with a heavy click. Success. The heavy bookcase slides back, revealing a secret room stacked high with massive treasure chests. Radis stands wide-eyed as blinding, colorful light washes over her pink gown. How did he gather all these mana stones? What a wicked man! Mana stones power the entire empire, yet they hold volatile monster mana that ordinary humans can never safely control or absorb. Radis slowly walks up to the chest and reaches her bare hand toward the shimmering pile. Can she really absorb this vast sea of demonic power without destroying herself? Under normal circumstances, raw demonic energy acts as a lethal poison to human bodies, requiring specialized devices to channel it safely. Touching unrefined monster crystals directly should scorch someone just like lightning or fire. Yet standing in this secret vault, Radis feels no burning agony whatsoever. Instead, the volatile gems instantly lose their dark hue and crumble into brittle dust in her palm, flooding her heart with warm mana. She learned to convert internal corruption during her past life, but absorbing external monster energy is completely unprecedented. Did something go wrong with me when I traveled back in time? She eagerly scoops up another shimmering crystal, watching its brilliant radiance wash over her open hand. Could she truly possess a miraculous gift that noble knights spend their whole lives chasing? Power changes everything. A fond memory from her childhood suddenly resurfaces. Years ago, her swordsmanship teacher Armano shared a peaceful picnic with her under the trees, explaining that mastering mana is an exceptionally rare talent in the Empire. Smiling warmly, he handed young Radis lunch and asked, "Is it good? I made it myself." Honestly, having one person who showed her genuine kindness back then means everything. Her past self never acquired a mana core through formal training. In her previous life, absorbing demonic energy was a desperate struggle to survive fatal monster poisoning on the battlefield. Terrified that others would view her as a dangerous monster, she guarded her secret with her life. Survival demanded absolute silence. Letting the powdery dark residue slip through her fingers, Radis resolves to keep her mysterious power hidden this time as well. If only she could consult Armano right now. But as she carefully fixes her dress brooch, a low groan breaks the quiet room. Radis spins around as sudden tension hits her. Cradium is slowly waking up on the floor, feebly calling her name with a strained whisper. "Don't go, stay with me." Will his unexpected consciousness trap her here, or can she slip away with his hoarded fortune before he fully recovers? After emptying the secret chest, Radis decides it is time to leave before Cradium wakes up on the floor. She slips out into the quiet night, letting the heavy carriage carry her back to the family estate at dawn. She still needs to figure out how to send a letter to her teacher safely. Exhausted, Radis steps through the grand mansion doors, already focused on her next moves. But a furious scream shatters the morning quiet. Her mother looms over her, shrieking, "What gives you the right to walk in here with your head held so high?" Radis simply looks back, asking if she did something wrong. Her mother rants about the scandalous embarrassment of staying out until morning. She completely forgets that she was the one who forced Radis onto Cradium in the first place. When she raises a hand in rage, something stops her cold. Radis is not a helpless girl anymore. Does her mother really think Radis will just take the abuse? Stepping in close, Radis fixes her mother with an intimidating stare that instantly smothers the woman's anger. The quiet intensity makes her mother recoil in frustration. Then Radis delivers a flat, cold response. Nothing happened. Honestly, seeing Radis hold her ground like this is incredibly satisfying. Without waiting for another word, Radis calmly turns her back and walks away. Her mother screams after her, warning, "If you come back pregnant before you're even married, you're dead meat." Radis keeps gliding up the staircase without missing a single step, leaving the empty threats behind. Her mother clutches her head in exasperation before a scheming realization strikes her. Cradium spent the night with her daughter. Why waste such a golden opportunity when she can squeeze extortion money out of him? A sharp, wicked smile quickly forms on her face. She gleefully plots to use the extortion money for her favored son David, convinced he just needs a better academy to shine on his own. Delighted with her cruel scheme, she orders the maid to bring paper for her demand letter. Will her blackmail backfire once Cradium wakes up to his empty vault? The very next morning, a butler interrupts the mother's quiet tea to announce a gentleman waiting downstairs. Her face immediately brightens with greedy anticipation. She smugly assumes Cradium rushed over to protect his noble standing after her letter. I suppose he cares about his reputation after all, but the servant's awkward hesitation cuts her short. It's not Lord Cradium. Her confident smile instantly falters as confusion replaces her smug triumph. Who else could possibly be visiting their estate so early in the morning? A polished black boot steps firmly into the room, filling the quiet hall with heavy tension. Dressed in dark silk, Marquis Yves Roussel makes his striking entrance. His intense golden eyes cut right through the sudden silence, radiating absolute authority. What urgent business brings such a high-ranking noble to their doorstep? Honestly, this powerful guest changes everything. Whispers ripple through the grand drawing room as nervous servants gawk at the Marquis of Russell. Dark rumors surround him. The staff quietly murmur that a monster stole his soul and cursed his very presence. Meanwhile, the clueless Tilrid parents panic nearby, scolding their young daughter while foolishly assuming this wealthy noble arrived seeking a prospective bride. Setting down his teacup with deliberate calm, the Marquis silences their frantic chatter. He stares forward with piercing yellow eyes, announcing that he came solely because there is something he requires. As the father stammers desperate offers to grant whatever the Lord desires, the Marquis delivers his sharp demand. I require Radis Tilrod. Far away in her quiet attic room, Radis inspects a sealed envelope regarding Manastone extraction. She already dispatched a letter to Professor Armano just in case, but she knows any incoming mail remains unsafe in this house. Margaret will surely burn any reply before she even sees it. How can she secure her letters under a secret identity? A sudden knock on her bedroom door breaks her concentration long before mealtime. Honestly, I would keep that door locked tight. Radis opens it cautiously, looking up in surprise as an overwhelming shadow fills her entire doorway. Standing tall at her threshold, the Marquis of Russell towers over her in imposing, silent intensity. The Marquis gazes down at her and bluntly asks if she is Radis. Intimidated by his massive frame, she shrinks back for just a brief moment before catching her breath. She raises her head, looks him straight in the eyes, and asks, "And who are you?" She refuses to cower before an arrogant intruder. The Marquis leans against the doorframe, asking if she finds her own tone a bit disrespectful. Radis stands her ground without hesitation and replies, "I could say the same to you." He is thoroughly amused by her defiance. A sharp smirk spreads across his face as he prepares to introduce himself properly. Introducing himself as Yves Russell, the Marquis of Russell, he leaves Radis thoroughly stunned. He calmly turns and steps out into the quiet hallway. Around the corner, her mother gnashes her teeth in sheer embarrassment, furious that Radis dared to greet a grand marquis in plain working clothes. Confused by his sudden visit, Radis asks what business a high nobleman could possibly have with a girl like her. He does not beat around the bush. "Radis, come to the Russell estate." The direct command leaves her completely bewildered. Eve promises to protect her privacy while offering an astonishing salary. How does 100 million Lufen a year sound? Radis reels in disbelief. That single sum leaves her speechless. With that kind of fortune, she could easily buy an entire cherry orchard. Is he serious right now? Suspicion quickly creeps in as she lowers her eyes in quiet doubt. Why would anyone pay a fortune for someone her family treats like garbage? When her silence lingers, Eve assumes the offer is too low and promises to double it, forcing her to frantically wave her hands and decline. Radis looks him in the eyes and asks why. She knows her greedy parents are groveling downstairs, practically salivating over their own payout. Standing her ground, she directly asks why he is going to such absurd lengths just to take her away. To her family, she has always been labeled as a family disgrace and the bitter black sheep. Her mother eagerly accepts a massive consolation fee without a second thought. She even badmouths Radis to his face, warning that she is an ill-mannered handful they will not take responsibility for. Honestly, her mother's cruelty never fails to amaze me. Eve looks down at the greedy woman and asks, "You aren't even going to ask what I intend to use her for?" But her mother just laughs it off, eagerly selling away an outcast in her own home to a solitary lord whose dark world reflects her own. Eve steps close, cutting through her lingering doubts with a startling confession. He reveals that his staggering financial offer isn't random at all. It's because of the third Prince Olivier Arpend. Radis turns to him in complete shock as the dark marquis locks his piercing yellow eyes onto her. Her mind races back to her secret encounter in the birthday banquet greenhouse. The mysterious stranger who offered her a fine handkerchief embroidered with the initials OA was actually the prince. Eve calmly confirms that the distant royal has taken a direct interest in her. Talk about an unexpected turn. Radis remains deeply skeptical of his strange motives. Why pay an astronomical fortune just because a prince glanced her way? That makes it sound even more suspicious. Eve completely loses his cool, shouting at her that she has no idea what an unapproachable man the prince really is. He dramatically rants about rumors that the prince is an emotionless marble statue who ignores everyone around him. Eve even admits he almost unbuttoned his own shirt just to get a reaction out of him. Radis cringes in complete disgust, begging him to stop before he clears his throat. When Radis mutters that she is simply being sold off again, Eve reaches out and firmly grabs her collar. His tone turns dead serious as he offers a startling proposal. "Radis, use me in return." He urges her to take this chance and abandon her family before they discard her. Her eyes widen in sudden realization. This isn't another trap. It is a genuine escape route from her miserable life. Radis makes up her mind to grab this lifeline and step toward a bright future of her own. She will never look back. Elsewhere, ominous figures loom in a dimly lit chamber. Hooded interrogators stand over a bound man who frantically claims he lost all memory of the prince's banquet. They carefully inspect an intercepted letter sent to Cradium Merchantry, as a dark secret threatens to surface at last. The hooded interrogator looms over his bruised captive, harshly accusing him of losing the precious tribute mana stones. He even reveals he turned a blind eye to the man's side embezzlement all along. Sweat pours down his face as the cornered captive stammers in sheer disbelief. Desperate to save his own skin, the panicked man begs for one final chance to track down the thief. But the interrogator coldly assumes Marquis Russell or the third prince pulled the strings. Is anyone really safe from their reach? With a quiet sigh, he drops a dark, explosive orb. The magical sphere shatters in a blinding flare of red fire, completely swallowing the captive's frantic screams. The hooded agents stand amidst the flames, remaining completely unmoved. They quietly confirm that this stolen parchment is the final letter recovered from the target. A gloved hand slowly unfolds the intercepted parchment to inspect its private contents. The leader stares down at the handwriting with dark interest. Honestly, that unexpected sender changes everything. The Tilrod family, huh? Unknowingly, Radis now stands right in the crosshairs of a dangerous hidden power. As Radis packs her luggage in her room, Elaine watches her with growing concern. The maid can't comprehend why a noble daughter is moving into another household when she isn't getting married. Why would her father accept money to send her away when they aren't poor? Radis listens quietly, absorbing every word. Radis remembers how this proposal began inside the Marquis's office. He promised to protect her status for 2 years until adulthood. But there was one condition. You must work with me to sincerely seduce the third prince. During that meeting, the Marquis leaned in close with a sudden question. Have we met somewhere before? Radis calmly assured him it was their first meeting. Personally, I don't think he's buying it. Could he already suspect her past life? Even if he mistook her identity, the offer meant shelter away from her family. A marquis wouldn't lie. Deciding to take hold of her future, Radis firmly gripped her bag. I'll do it, the contract. Elaine panics, urgently warning Radis about dark rumors surrounding the Marquis's house. But as Radis watches the maid's anxious expression, she senses a meaningful shift. Elaine no longer treats her like a nuisance. She genuinely worries for her young lady. Seeing Elaine's sudden distress, Radis remains completely calm and unbothered. She tells the maid to stop worrying about her. and focus on protecting her own future instead. If they sell off their own biological daughter like this, what do you think they'd do to a maid? That harsh reality check hits Elaine instantly, leaving her entirely speechless. Grasping the iron door handle, Radis opens the door and steps out of her old room for the final time. As she turns back, a glowing vision of her younger self stands quietly in the doorway. Radis whispers a silent apology to that naive child, knowing her desperate wish for family warmth will never come true in this life. She leaves her past behind forever. Stepping out into the bright courtyard, Radis decides to offer one last formal goodbye to Margaret. But her stepmother merely giggles insincerely, dismissing the farewell as if they will surely meet again soon. She even has the nerve to demand that Radis put in a good word for her siblings with the high-ranking nobles at the marquis's house. Can you believe the audacity of this woman? Glancing around the quiet estate grounds, Radis calmly asks where her father is. Margaret scoffs in annoyance, admitting he left yesterday evening and hasn't bothered to return home. Radis isn't surprised. She never expected him to see her off anyway. Did anyone really expect him to show up? Honestly, I'm just glad she's leaving these terrible people behind. Just before Radis turns to leave, Margaret steps forward and points an aggressive finger right in her face. She strictly orders Radis to carve one final command deep into her mind. Wherever she goes, she must always prioritize the Tilrod family name and her younger brother David above all else. Her shameless self-interest truly knows no bounds. Margaret sneers viciously at Radis, warning her not to return home disgraced like a nobleman's mistress. Looking at the dark figures standing in the hallway, Radis isn't surprised by the shameless accusation. These cold people haven't changed one bit since her past life. Radis lowers her eyes with quiet detachment, knowing their cruelty will never soften. They are people she has nothing left to expect from anyway. She will never look back. Stepping out into the courtyard, Radis turns around to confront her stepmother with an unyielding gaze. "Shouldn't you have said from the start that you couldn't sell your daughter?" Her calm, sharp question cuts straight through Margaret's foolish pretense. Margaret waves her hands in theatrical outrage, insisting her painful choices were strictly for David and the family's survival. Standing beside the grand carriage, Radis listens silently as Margaret proudly scoffs that anyone would tell her to get rid of such a troublesome daughter. Is she for real? Glancing back before departing, Radis presses a hand to her chest as bottled grief finally overflows. "Why did you go this far to me?" A single tear rolls down her cheek as she confronts Margaret for raising her hand so easily against her while protecting the other children. She never loved her. Radis quietly asks what horrible wrong she committed to deserve a life of constant sacrifice. Infuriated by the truth, Margaret's face contorts in pure anger as she screams back that she was the true victim who suffered. Honestly, my heart aches for Radis right now. Margaret venomously declares that Radis was mistreated simply because she deserved it. Hearing those horrific words, Radis looks down at their dark shadows cast on the courtyard grass. She finally sees that her desperate struggle to earn affection only made her look like an easy target. As the tearful ghost of her childhood self stands quietly behind Margaret, Radis severs her remaining lingering doubts and steps into her future. Tightening her hand against her shirt, Radis looks her stepmother right in the eye without a trace of regret. She plainly states that she no longer needs any of them and will never struggle for their sake again. Tears glisten in her eyes, yet her voice remains steady. "So right now, this is me leaving." Margaret shrieks in outrage, accusing Radis of going completely mad. Rushing forward to separate them, Yuri tries to ease the tension with a nervous smile. She begs Radis not to take her father's absence to heart and asks if they will still see each other again in the future. Without an ounce of shame, Yuri blithely asks Radis to send back gifts and invite her to the marquis's grand estate. Is she for real? Ignoring their shameless greed, Radis tightens her fist, grips her bag, and walks toward the carriage without looking back once. Stepping inside the carriage, Radis feels the vehicle move as the wheels roll forward. Looking out the window, she watches the gloomy Tilrod mansion fade into the distance behind her. The painful days of enduring their heartless abuse are officially over. She is free. While traveling through the busy town streets, Radis gazes down at a sealed envelope in her lap addressed to Armano. A quiet uncertainty lingers in her heart as she asks herself if leaving home was truly the right choice. Will Marquis Russell's estate bring the safety she seeks? Arriving at the Russell Marquess's estate, Radis feels completely dwarfed by the massive palace surrounding her. Head butler Alan welcomes her with a warm smile, offering his complete assistance throughout her stay. If you require anything during your stay, please do not hesitate to ask me. Can a place this grand ever feel like home to her? Alan steps forward, offering to carry her luggage. Radis clutches her modest briefcase tightly, deeply embarrassed to have so little to her name after years of sacrifice. She politely insists on handling it herself, and Alan respectfully yields to her wish. She guards her few belongings closely. Alan leads her to an extraordinarily lavish bedroom filled with elegant furniture and sparkling decor. He smiles warmly, telling her to treat this as her own home from now on. Radis stands in utter disbelief. She feels sure there has been a huge mistake. Radis anxiously explains that a small bedroom would have been more than enough for someone of her standing. She assumes she was misidentified as an honored guest. However, Alan gently clarifies that this is the room the marquis specifically requested for her. He bows before taking his leave until dinner. Radis stands alone in the massive room, holding her lone suitcase. Outside in the hallway, Alan overhears house servants whispering about how horribly her family treated her back home. Hearing how neglected she was breaks my heart. Alan quietly resolves to instruct the entire staff to treat her with utmost respect. Stepping back outside her room, Radis timidly approaches the estate maids to ask if they can deliver a letter to someone named Armano. The maids react in sudden panic before bowing frantically to receive the note. They are eager to honor her request immediately. The maids frantically bow and dash off in a flurry, shouting, "We will get it sent right away then." Radis stands frozen in the hallway, thoroughly baffled by their panicked exit. Does her presence already feel like an unwanted burden to the household staff? Stepping back inside her lavish quarters, heavy guilt weighs on her shoulders. She worries that rumors of her family's troubles have already reached the estate. Gazing across the gorgeous bedroom, she softly mutters, "This isn't right." She clutches her head in agony over the overwhelming luxury. Did Prince Olivier even take a genuine interest in her? Or was the whole idea nonsense from the start? Honestly, if he doesn't appreciate her, I certainly do. Taking all this feels completely wrong. Catching her reflection in the tall standing mirror, Radis notices her crimson cheeks and feels utterly ridiculous. Was her face truly this bright red back then as well? Seeing her own flustered expression in the glass only deepens her growing self-doubt. Taking advantage of the Marquis's boundless generosity makes her feel dirty inside. If she stays under false pretenses, how is she any different from a shameless scammer like Hovercradium? She refuses to become a fraud. Determination fills her heart as she resolves to cancel the contract. She will ask to lodge here for just a couple of days before heading straight for the Rothschild family. Joining their monster subjugation squad will allow her to earn her own keep honorably. With her mind firmly made up, Radis marches toward the hallway door to face the Marquess and speak the truth. But right before her hand reaches the handle, a sharp knock suddenly echoes through the room. Eve Russell opens the heavy door, greeting Radis before their scheduled dinner. She takes a deep breath, urgently needing to discuss canceling her contract right now. But before she can state her request, a sharp voice echoes down the hallway. An elderly noblewoman approaches with a strict, commanding gaze, scolding Eve for neglecting his manners around estate guests. Eve respectfully introduces her as his grandmother, Dowager Marchioness Mariel Russell. Radis nervously stammers her formal bow and greeting. Examining gasps in outright dismay. "Good heavens, what are you wearing?" Radis blushes, nervously lowering her head. She truly only owns two simple outfits to her name. Mariel reprimands Eve for failing to provide proper garments for a visiting noble lady. Her sharp yellow eye locks onto Radis, demanding confirmation that this unadorned girl is indeed a daughter of the distinguished Tilrod family. Declaring an unengaged woman's stay highly unseemly, Muriel sternly asks if her parents approved of this arrangement. Radis softly answers that her parents were the ones who sent her here. The Marchioness fumes at Eve, convinced it is a shameless lie. Clutching her cane, Muriel shouts that no loving parents would ever send their unmarried daughter to stay with a strange man. She orders Radis to return home immediately. Does she really believe every family treats their children with warmth and care? Mariel scolds her for driving a nail through her parents' hearts, calling it a failure of basic human decency. Heavy shadows fall across Radis's face as past memories sting. But instead of backing down, Radis speaks clearly. "In this world, there are people who have no right to be parents, dowager, marchioness. Personally, seeing her stand her ground against nobility gives me absolute chills. Mariel sternly insists that children must always forgive their parents' flaws, no matter what they do. But Radis completely snaps, shouting back from the very depths of her heart. She spent her entire past life desperately trying to earn her family's love, endlessly agonizing over what she was doing wrong. The Marchioness stands utterly speechless as Radis delivers a piercing truth. Society preaches filial piety, yet parents get a pass. Strangely enough, people only ever speak of the duty of a child, but they never seem to mention the duty of a parent. Whispering a faint apology, Radis turns on her heel and flees down the corridor. Mariel frantically shouts for her to wait, but the damage is done. She refuses to endure another second of this judgment. Honestly, seeing her break down like this breaks my heart. Her family's cruel rejection echoes in her mind like an open wound. Sprinting directly to the stables, Radis leaps onto a horse and gallops at full speed past the stunned butler. She charges straight through the grand estate gates into the open wilderness. Why was she granted a second chance at life? Hunched low over the horse's mane, tears fall uncontrollably onto the leather saddle. Was she really brought back just to be crushed by expectations all over again? Was dying once not enough? Her horse slows to a cautious walk as she enters a dark, murky swamp. Thick mist clings to the twisted trees while a sinister green aura creeps along the muddy water. The oppressive silence stretches across the lonely woods. Looking around in utter shock, Radis suddenly recognizes this cursed land. It is a place she could never forget. Danger looms everywhere. She suddenly realizes the Marquess's grand estate sits directly beside the notorious monster forest. Standing at the edge of this deadly domain, can Rodidus really survive on her own? Right, the house of Marquis Russell. It was right beside the forest of monsters. Radis pulls her horse to a halt as massive beasts shadow the canopy above. Is she trembling right now? Not at all. She steps forward with steady eyes, recognizing every dangerous corner of this grim border. This dark, forbidden land was her entire world in her previous life. For years, she endured endless, numbing marches through the dense woods and fought horrific battles against countless monsters. Even the vile demonic energy that eventually led to her death feels as vivid as yesterday. And yet, despite all the bloodshed, she never once hated this forest. It gave her something her parents never did: genuine warmth. Her comrades trusted her without question, throwing their arms around her shoulders while shouting in joy. "Vice Captain, did you hear what this bastard just said?" Honestly, those rough soldiers gave her more real affection than her family ever managed. At times, this brutal wilderness felt far more like home than Tilrod. She kept her silence behind her heavy iron helmet, terrified they might discover she was secretly a woman. Still, they followed her proudly. Then there was the commander who guided them all through the darkness. The captain of the subjugation force was just as sparing with his words as Radis was. Yet whenever he spoke, his quiet voice fell over her like warm sunlight. He was her anchor. Whenever Robert turned back to face her and said gently, "I trust you, Dee," her guarded heart softened completely. His simple faith in her meant everything. Hidden safe inside her battle armor, Radis finally knew what it felt like to truly belong somewhere. Radis comes to a sudden halt as low growls reverberate through the dark trees. From the murky shadows, several three-eyed wolves slowly surround her, their glowing eyes fixed on her every movement. These low-ranking monsters rarely stray toward the edge of the forest unless they are starving badly. Troublesome creatures like these never travel alone. They attack in packs, even without a steel blade in hand. Radis doesn't flinch for a single second. Unlike her past life at 16, she already knows how to harness her strength. "I have a mana core." Brilliant golden flames erupt from her open palms, coalescing into a shimmering blade of intense heat that illuminates the shadowy woods. With a swift, practiced arc, Radis slashes through the lunging beasts before they can even touch her. Her swordsmanship is pure instinct, leaving nothing behind but drifting embers and dark blood on the grass. Did those monsters really think she was an easy target? Not a chance. As the smoke settles, Radis inspects her fingers and shakes her head. "I only shaped the mana loosely into the form of a sword so it falls apart too easily. Constructing a weapon out of raw magic burns through her reserves far faster than wielding a forged blade. Honestly, I'd want a proper sword too. Can you blame her for missing her former equipment?" Seeing their packmates cut down so easily, the remaining wolves instantly lose their nerve. Whimpering in sheer panic, they abandon the hunt and sprint back toward the safety of the dense wilderness. They ran for their lives. Radis releases a quiet breath as silence returns to the clearing. Stepping over the scorched mud, she kneels near the burning ground and pulls out a clean cloth from her tunic. Even after an unexpected skirmish, her resolve remains totally unshaken as she prepares for whatever danger lies ahead. Radis carefully collects the glowing magic stones left behind by the wolves, wrapping them securely inside a clean cloth. Even low-ranking monsters yield valuable mana cores on the market. If House Rothschild turns her away, selling these will keep her fed. She leaves nothing to waste. Independence is her only safety net. Kneeling in the wet mud as heavy rain trickles through the forest canopy, she knows she must head back to the estate soon. Radis pushes past her physical exhaustion, determined to finish her unfinished business with the marquis. She won't rely on their charity. Can you really blame her for being cautious? Memories of harsh glares and demanding nobles flare up in her mind, but Radis refuses to let old scars sway her resolve. She wipes the cold rain from her brow and stands tall. Her path is set. She tilts her chin upward, ready to face whatever awaits at the mansion. Before long, her exhausted body completely gives out. Radis wakes up tucked beneath heavy blankets with a cool, damp cloth pressed against her burning forehead. Burning through her entire mana reserve triggered a sudden fever. Is her 16-year-old body really this frail? She grimaces softly, unaccustomed to feeling so weak. An attentive maid leans over her bed with deep concern, asking gently, "Lady Radis, are you quite all right?" Radis forces a weak smile. Relieved, the household assumes she simply caught a chill in the storm. She stays silent about her mana core. Secrecy is safer. Suddenly, the room fills as a whole team of attentive maids swarms her bedside with fresh clothes, hot soup, and warm tea. Why are there so many people tending to me? Radis sits frozen, bewildered by all the sudden care. Honestly, she deserves every bit of this pampering. Taking a slow sip of hot tea from a silver goblet, the comforting warmth spreads through her shivering chest. After a lifetime of cold neglect from her family, being cared for without any hidden cost feels completely foreign. Will she finally accept that she deserves kindness? Radis watches the attentive maids with growing bewilderment, realizing they aren't trying to torment her at all. Is it really standard for a marquis's house to offer such overwhelming care? The moment she sets her cup down and softly says, "Thank you," the maids erupt into flustered whispers. "Eek! She thanked us!" Their joyful reaction leaves her completely baffled. As Radis clutches her silver goblet, a towering shadow suddenly falls across her bed. Head butler Allen steps forward, looking down at her with a stern, imposing expression that chills the room. She freezes. Radis nervously greets the formidable butler, wondering why he has personally come to her bedside. Then a terrible realization hits her. She took a horse from the estate without permission before riding out into the monster forest. Looking at his intensely sharp glare, dread tightens in her chest. He must be furious. Will her reckless ride ruin her stay here? I swear, this poor girl can never catch a break. Remembering how she impulsively took a horse and rode away without permission, Radis nervously braces herself for a stern reprimand from the household. One glance at head butler Allen's intense shadowed expression seems to confirm her absolute worst fears. Will he punish her severely right now? To her complete surprise, Allen is not shouting at her at all. Instead, he angrily bellows at 12 overzealous maids crowding around her bed, ordering them to leave at once. Once quiet returns to the room, the butler turns back and bows respectfully, apologizing for making her endure such a bizarre spectacle. Radis innocently asks if this chaotic level of attention is simply how nursing works in a grand marquis's mansion. Allen awkwardly clears his throat before confessing that every single maid in the household fought for the chance to care for her personally. Honestly, who could blame them? It turns out the estate staff view Radis as a dashing protagonist straight from a popular novel. Radis tilts her head in utter confusion, unable to comprehend why they compare her to a handsome knight. Still, a comforting warmth fills her heart knowing they do not hate her after all. Lowering her gaze, Radis offers a quiet, sincere apology for taking off with the horse without warning. Allen gently waves off her concern, presenting a nourishing tonic specially prepared by the physician. He promises to assign a quiet nurse so she can focus entirely on her recovery. Yet Radis hesitates. She looks up with a quiet, uncertain question. "Aren't you going to scold me?" Allen pauses, his stern posture melting away completely. He gently reassures her that seeing her return home safe and unharmed is all that matters to him. He gently requests that next time she feels overwhelmed, she vent her frustration directly on him rather than riding toward the dangerous forest of monsters. My heart truly would have dropped, he confesses softly. Deeply touched by his genuine care, Radis bows her head. Thank you so much for worrying about me. Eve enters her room carrying a towering bouquet of bright yellow roses, bowing deeply as he murmurs, I was truly sorry about yesterday. Radis hastily insists she was the one at fault. Still, staring down at the ridiculously giant bundle of flowers in her lap, she is left completely bewildered. He points out a lavish mountain of dresses, sent directly by Dowager Marchioness Marielle as a formal apology. Eve explains that he firmly established himself as her official guardian. Softening his posture, he admits this mess never would have happened if he had explained everything clearly from the start. Radis tenderly touches the glowing yellow petals in her lap, feeling her heart thaw. She used to see Eve's as nothing more than a terrifying, cold noble. Isn't it strange how a single heartfelt apology from him can make all her past hurt completely disappear? Eve sternly maintains that she had no reason to listen to such cruel words. With an awkward scratch of his neck, he casually mentions banning the dowager from the estate until a proper apology is delivered. Honestly, I'm totally here for his protective streak. Radis can hardly believe her ears. Radis gazes up at him, her mind racing with quiet self-doubt. Is it really okay for her to remain here? Why is he going this far for her? A high-ranking lord with nothing to gain actually bowed his head and risked family conflict just to defend a troublesome girl. That cozy warmth instantly evaporates when Eve calls her Miss Stepping Stone. Leaning down close with a sharp, calculating smirk, he coolly clarifies that all this luxury is just a business move. As long as Prince Olivier takes a liking to her, this level of investment is nothing. His eyes dark with ruthless ambition, Eve lowers his voice to deliver his true plan. I'm going to become a duke. Making Prince Olivier his ally is merely the start. Radis watches him in silence, wondering if she is truly prepared to be his stepping stone to power. Recalling his grand strategy to connect with the royal court, Radis looks down nervously while cradling the massive bouquet in her lap. She softly asks if he isn't afraid of wasting his money if she ends up completely ineffective at winning Prince Olivier's favor. She hates being a burden. Eve laughs off her hesitation with a dramatic spin around the room. Do you take me for a fool? He gestures dismissively, boasting that he has plenty of alternative options and that feeding one extra person won't make even the slightest dent in the Marquess's immense wealth. Leaning close with an attentive gaze, his posture softens as he tells her to simply relax and focus entirely on her recovery. Radis lowers her eyes in quiet contemplation. Is it truly acceptable for her to rest here without feeling guilty? Processing his sharp ambition, Radis realizes he views this entire arrangement as a purely strategic gamble. To him, she is a business investment, and a bad harvest is never the crop's fault. Honestly, I'm just glad she finally has a partner who respects logic. Eve grins with bright satisfaction. Now we're talking. Extending his black-gloved hand toward her, he offers a formal proposal. I'm looking forward to working with you, Radis. With a gentle smile breaking across her face, Radis reaches out and firmly seals their new partnership with a handshake. Exactly 2 years. That is the time frame of their mutual contract. If she stays at the mansion and cooperates to the best of her ability for just 2 years, it will be enough. During those 2 years, she can finally figure out how to live her own independent life. When Toss left alone in the quiet room, Radis falls back onto her soft mattress, hugging the vibrant yellow bouquet tightly against her chest. She gently buries her face in the blossoms, inhaling their sweet fragrance with a tranquil smile. This is the very first time in her life that anyone has ever given her flowers. Eve steps into the quiet grand hallway. Left alone with her thoughts, Radis rests while Eve walks away into the golden light. Echoes of a forgotten childhood memory suddenly resurface. A tearful boy reaches out as a gentle voice promises, "If you're afraid of the dark, I will walk with you." Who could that comforting voice belong to? I knew there was more to his ruthless ambition. His golden eyes ignite with intense determination as he makes a private vow. He will reclaim the title of Duke at any cost, just for you. A harsh shout violently shatters the morning quiet, echoing right outside her bedroom chamber. "Earn your keep!" the Marquis roars with fierce energy, demanding her immediate attention without wasting a second. He flings the heavy doors wide open, framed by blinding sunlight as he strides inside. Radis drags herself up from the couch with a weary sigh. Sleep will just have to wait. Despite his overwhelming entrance, living at the Marquisate feels like an unbelievable dream. Soft goose-down bedding greets her every night, while extravagant feasts fill the dining table each morning. She has never seen such luxurious dishes in her entire life. Even the maids treat her with genuine kindness, warmly inviting her to join their private tea circle later. As long as she abides by her agreed schedule, no one questions how she spends her personal time. Is this what real freedom feels like? The Marquis suddenly leans in to announce another grand gesture. He insists on taking her measurements for a custom dress, completely ignoring her gentle reluctance. Honestly, I would never turn down an entire wardrobe upgrade. Radis worries she already has too many dresses, but a running maid interrupts her thoughts. A maid enters carrying a polished silver tray with a sealed letter from Professor Armano. Radis beams with bright gratitude, looking up to say, "Thank you so much, Barry." The young maid flushes crimson, deeply touched that the young lady remembered her name. Respect goes a long way. Retreating to the sunlit drawing room, Radis carefully breaks the wax seal. Her master writes to his lovely and precious disciple, expressing how hearing of her stay at the Russell estate stirs mixed emotions. Warmth fills her chest as she reads his words. He explains that joy that comes from knowing anywhere is better for her than House Tilrod. However, heavy sorrow remains from the overwhelming helplessness he felt when he was forced to leave her behind in that cruel home. A long-buried pain finally surfaces between them. Reading further into the letter, Radis chuckles softly at her mentor's overly dramatic phrasing. Professor Armano hasn't changed a single bit. He honestly seems far better suited to be a wandering bard than a stern knight. But as his writing turns to her question about mana manipulation, his advice grows much more serious. Regrettably, the professor admits he has never even heard of converting the malice inside mana stones into usable energy. Although he is thrilled by her newfound interest in mana cultivation, he gently reminds her that she is still far too young for heavy training. Even so, he promises to offer his complete assistance whenever she asks. Clutching the warm letter tightly, Radis smiles softly to herself in the quiet drawing room. If only her dear master knew the truth. She quietly thinks, "I already know how to use mana, Professor." Her secret runs deep. In her tragic past life, Radis didn't realize how to tap into mana until her late 20s. Thanks to those lingering memories, she successfully formed a mana core at a remarkably young age this time around. However, since even the professor remains in the dark about malice conversion, she knows she will have to visit the monster forest again soon. Can unrefined energy really be that lethal? Mana itself possesses no physical form, but depending on how a person wields it, it becomes a weapon more dangerous than any forged blade. Proper technique makes all the difference. Feeling bold, Radis channels a flick of fire into a simple silver teaspoon, confident she could reach the mid-tier of the monster forest with just tea utensils. Suddenly, the metal snaps right in half. Honestly, I would be just as baffled if a spoon exploded in my fingers. Wide-eyed with shock, she mutters, "Is my mana really this potent?" Before she can process her overwhelming power, a loud shout echoes through the drawing room, announcing that the Marquis is waiting for her. Radis instantly snaps out of her stupor and leaps off the couch with an energetic, "Oh yes!" Duty calls. Radis cautiously steps through the doorway, her heart sinking as she worries about the cost of whatever grand scheme awaits. Hearing the Marquis call for her, she quickly rushes forward to respond. Standing on a wooden fitting platform, Radis watches in bewilderment as a tailor measures her frame. Meanwhile, a staggering daily schedule of skin treatments, massages, and etiquette classes is read aloud. Is all this pampering really necessary? Overwhelmed by the intense schedule, Radis bluntly asks if fake nails and daily grooming are truly required. Her honest hesitation catches everyone in the room off guard, bringing the Marquis to a sudden halt. Leaning down with a sly grin, the Marquis whispers directly into her ear, "Do you not wish to see Prince Olivier again?" Radis blushes instantly at the mention of his name, giving the Marquis the perfect excuse to push forward. Seamstress Celia enthusiastically steps forward, proudly introducing herself as the head tailor of the South's premier dress shop. Blushing behind her glasses, she vows to craft breathtaking gowns for this enchanting high society romance. Asked for her preferred colors, Radis quietly requests anything but pink. But the Marquise roars out silver and purple, demanding 10 custom outfits for each shade. Cost is completely irrelevant to him. Radis forces a strained smile while trying to digest the chaotic madness. She convinces herself that enduring this ridiculous makeover is simply the price of her room and board. Honestly, I would just take a nap. By the time she reaches the library, the brutal schedule takes its toll. Radis slumps headfirst onto the desk in sheer exhaustion. Observing her distress, Alan gently offers to postpone today's lesson until tomorrow. Pushing herself back up, Radis firmly declines the break. She insists on working as hard as possible during her stay at the estate. Endure and overcome. Seeing her overwhelming exhaustion, Alan offers a warm smile and suggests a gentle change of pace. He places an ornate volume titled The Adventures of Prince Dantes on the table for light reading. Radis stares down at the cover in surprise, asking softly, "Is this a storybook?" Bittersweet memories surface as Radis admits her brother David strictly forbade her from touching it at home, leaving her with only a glimpse of the cover. How many simple childhood pleasures did her family deny her? "I just want to protect her." Alan observes her quiet sorrow with profound compassion. Alan explains that this volume isn't just an ordinary story, but a rare imperial gift reserved strictly for noble houses who performed monumental deeds. Radis gasps, her fingers tightening around the ancient cover. "So that's why the pages look so old and worn." Alan confesses he assumed everyone in House Tilrod knew the tale inside out. Opening the book, he reveals that the legendary sword-wielding hero Alexis Tilrod is actually her direct ancestor. A glorious legacy long denied to her finally steps into the light, leaving a quiet spark of wonder in her eyes. Long ago, the gates to the underworld opened, unleashing darkness across the continent. Prince Dantes of Cardia assembled 3 legendary knights: the Spear of Light, the Shield of Eternity, and the Sword of Flame. Examining the ancient illustration, Radis points and asks, "This man is Alexis Tilrod, is he not?" Her tutor confirms it, adding that Sir Berard Russell, the Shield of Eternity, founded House Russell. Radis finds the revelation amusing. The descendants of heroes who once fought back-to-back in legend now stand around in extravagant dresses, fussing over party attire. Time really changes everything, doesn't it? Prince Dantes and his knights journeyed across the land to push back the dark forces, but every great victory demanded bitter sacrifice. The Sword of Flame fell first on the front line. Then the Shield of Eternity shattered, and before long, even the Spear of Light vanished. Victory came at a devastating cost. Curious, Radis asks what truly happened to the missing knight. Her tutor explains that opinions differ. Some say he perished, while others view it as a metaphor for betrayal. Without official records or descendants, his true fate remains an unwritten mystery. Despite those tragic losses, Prince Dant successfully reclaimed the realm and sealed the underworld gates. The surviving monsters retreated deep into the dark woods, creating the infamous Forest of Monsters. Evil never truly vanishes. Radis sits silently at her desk, turning the pages of the storybook. Her tutor remarks that the tale exists to warn children against stepping anywhere near the dark forest. If you ask me, that's one effective way to keep kids from wandering into danger. Staring down at the forbidden land on the map, Radis falls into deep thought about her own choices. Had she read this storybook in her childhood, would she have stayed away from that dangerous place? A chilling question lingers in her mind. Even seasoned monster subjugation troops tread warily near the Forest of Monsters. Yet at the end of her past life, Radis walked straight into its dark heart as if drawn by a cruel just fate itself. Standing alone in her heavy armor, she confronted the ancient, corrupted tree glowing deep within the forbidden land. Years earlier, Radis served as the dedicated vice captain of the monster subjugation unit stationed along the hazardous border. Under the open sky of their encampment, her comrades gathered around her in high spirits. "Vice Captain, is it true?" They pressed eagerly. Radis confirmed the news. The camp erupted in joyful celebration. For years, the sneering wretches of House Roderick had looked down on their captain for his bastard birth. Now that the imperial palace was finally granting his of magic swordsmanship, they could wipe those smug looks off their faces. The men eagerly planned a grand welcome feast for his return. Turning to Regressed, her comrade grinned and asked if she would seek official recognition next. Her mana and martial power easily outmatched those capital fools. Suddenly, the festive mood shattered completely. A panicked messenger rushed into the clearing, screaming at the top of his lungs that a grave problem had just occurred. It seems the Imperial Inspection Party has entered the Forbidden Land. The foolish inspectors were instructed to wait safely until the captain returned from the capital. Instead, they snuck into the dangerous woods alone, leaving behind only a brief note. "If you ask me, noble arrogance is a recipe for disaster." What were they thinking? Furious murmurs echoed through the camp. "If they're so determined to die, then let them," a knight snapped bitterly. But leaving those reckless inspectors to perish meant their absent captain would carry the blame for their deaths. Radis stared down at the crumpled note, burdened with a brutal decision. Leaving those arrogant noble inspectors to perish inside the dark forest would completely destroy Captain Robert's hard-earned achievement, placing the entire blame squarely on his shoulders. Radis refuses to let his future crumble. Without another word, she clenches her gloved hand in determination and casts away all hesitation to save them. Taking swift command of the anxious encampment, Radis outlines an urgent rescue plan. She splits the knights into 3 squads, directing the advance team to track the inspector's footprints while the remaining units prepare to defend against sudden monster ambushes. As her comrades move into action, a poignant memory resurfaces in her heart. Right before setting off for the capital, Captain Robert had held her shoulders gently, gazing into her eyes with complete faith. "I trust you, Dee. You are the only one I can entrust my rear to." He had paused, promising to reveal the rest when he returned safely. What was it he had truly intended to say in that quiet, lingering silence? She never got her answer, and the unspoken secret still weighs heavily upon her soul. Plunging headfirst into the hazardous woods, Radis unleashes her burning aura, transforming the shadows into an inferno. She slashes through waves of beasts with breathtaking ferocity, forcing even the ambush goblins to retreat up the trees in sheer panic. If you ask me, her battlefield prowess is simply magnificent. Standing victorious in the quiet aftermath, Radis stares at her blood-stained hands in quiet realization. Her magic hasn't drained at all. Her past collapse wasn't caused by weak mana, but by unleashing a massive torrent of power all at once while caught in the freezing rain. Yet as she looks down at her mud-splattered gloves, a disturbing question lingers in her mind. Why has her total mana capacity suddenly expanded to such unbelievable heights? A deep, unsettling mystery remains unsolved. Look at her hands. Even after being drenched in dark monster blood, not a single trace of demonic corruption takes root. Staring down at her burning aura, Radis realizes her mana capacity has already far outmatched her past self. Has returning to the past rewritten her very strength? A quiet, electric hope kindles inside her chest. Standing she feels the heat of her own flames. If her power has surged beyond everything she once knew, could she actually change her future as well? No more endless sacrifice. Heading back through the dark trees, Radis resolves to visit the forest, often to master her soaring mana. Still, deceiving Marquis Russell leaves a heavy weight on her conscience. But how could she explain the truth? It's not as though she can say, "I am in fact living my second life." If you ask me, some secrets are far too dangerous to share. As dawn light sweeps across the estate grounds, a silhouette watches from high above. Marquis Russell narrows his sharp yellow eyes, catching sight of Radis, walking through the courtyard in her blue dress. At this hour, where could she be returning from? He tracks her steps with cold suspicion. What is she hiding? High above the estate grounds, he gazes out from the window and catches sight of Radis stepping into the courtyard. She walks through the open gardens entirely alone, looking quiet and thoughtful. Where is she going at this hour? His eyes remain fixed on her distant figure as she moves further away. Radis walks steadily along the paved pathways, completely unaware of the gaze watching her from high above. Honestly, I can't blame him for watching her so closely. She carries herself with a quiet dignity, stepping softly into the cool air while keeping her thoughts strictly to herself. When his butler notices her departure and offers to send guards into the dangerous nearby woods, he immediately turns down the suggestion. Following her now would only make it look like they are spying on her. She is not a helpless child. She understands the situation well enough to handle herself without supervision. Meanwhile, inside a lavish bedroom torn apart, in utter chaos, a frantic scream shatters the silence. Open chests and scattered papers cover the floor while the mother collapses in sheer breakdown. The terrified young daughter rushes to her side to see what happened. Her useless father stole money from the family treasury again. The maid trembles in horror while the daughter recoils from the overwhelming explosion of rage. Years of bitter resentment break open as the mother clutches her head and screams about her husband keeping a second family in secret. She shrieks in raw fury. "I hope he gets struck by lightning." Her manic anger suddenly turns away from her absent husband and lands squarely on her terrified daughter. Grasping a heavy brass candlestick from the table, the mother approaches with dangerous venom in her eyes. She screams, "You ruined my life!" She blames her own children for tying her to this miserable family forever. The heavy metal weapon strikes down with a sharp clash, sending a desperate scream echoing through the dark mansion corridors. That cruel attack seals the deep scars of abuse that pushed Radis to break away from her past. Her violent breakdown snaps to an abrupt halt when the butler announces a prominent guest. Sir Felice Rothschild has arrived. She freezes on the spot, reluctantly releasing her daughter's hair while trying to regain her composure before the nobleman steps inside. Instantly switching back into her cold, manipulative persona, the mother turns to her terrified daughter with sickening toxicity. She whispers, "Think of how much I am sacrificing because of you." Casting one last menacing glare toward the floor, she orders the servants to prepare the reception before sweeping out of the room. Downstairs in the formal drawing room, Madame Tilrod greets Sir Rothschild with rehearsed grace, masking the chaotic breakdown upstairs. He politely takes her hand and inquires if Radis mentioned anything to her beforehand. The mother stares blankly in absolute confusion. What could Radis have possibly arranged? Sir Rothschild reveals that Radis approached him directly, requesting a coveted spot for David in the elite Rothschild subjugation squad. He praises Radis warmly, assuming she acted out of deep sisterly devotion over David's failed academy entrance exam. Madame Tilrod gasps in disbelief at this unbelievable turn of events. He outlines the rigorous training path, explaining that field deployment as a squire will turn David into a formidable knight. Hearing about such immense prestige makes the mother's eyes light up with ruthless ambition. Rothschild smiles, adding that Radis's earnest plea reminded him of his own loving elder sister long ago. Madame Tilrod hides her delight behind a polite smile, convinced this is David's grand opportunity to achieve greatness. She quickly invites Sir Rothschild to sit and outline the contract details. I honestly love watching her fall right into Radis's clever trap without suspecting a single thing. Far away at the marquis's estate, Radis undergoes a stunning transformation as the attentive maids dressed her in an elegant green gown. The sweet maid Nikki eagerly offers to style her hair and makeup. Radis softly replies, "I'm in your hands, Nikki," finally experiencing genuine warmth and gentle care. The maids can barely contain their excitement as they put the finishing touches on Radis's hair and makeup. They gush endlessly over how breathtaking she looks in her elegant green gown, admiring her unique charm. One maid even wonders out loud if heaven sent down an angel straight into their estate. A quiet step interrupts the room's lively chatter as the black-haired man steps inside. Caught completely off guard while wearing such a fancy dress, Radis feels self-conscious under his intense gaze. She blushes softly, turning around to nervously ask him, "Does it look weird?" He gently replies, "No," taking a glittering jeweled necklace from its box before stepping behind her. He carefully fastens the ornament around her throat, leaning close to whisper, "You are truly beautiful, Radis." Her heart skips a beat. She blushes softly while touching the shimmering pendant. Smiling warmly, he presents her with a sleek decorative envelope containing theater tickets. He explains that since she dressed up so magnificently today, it would be a total waste to stay hidden indoors. Sounds like a dream date, right? Talk about a wonderfully smooth date offer from him. Holding the tickets, bitter memories of her previous timeline suddenly flood back. While she suffered through brutal monster subjugation missions under her brother's name, David freely snuck out to watch plays in disguise. Back then, seeing a performance was an impossible dream. Now she is finally living a different life. When he turns around and asks if she will go with him, Radis looks up with a bright, radiant smile. She eagerly responds, "Yes, of course." Seeing her finally smile like this is deeply rewarding. Their first outing begins on a lovely note, but unexpected trouble quickly disrupts their plans. Instead of arriving at a cozy playhouse, they end up standing before an ancient stone archway filled with surging blue magic. Rada is at the portal in surprise and asks, "This is a gate, isn't it?" He nonchalantly confirms they are taking the portal straight to Duras near the capital for their outing. Radis panics over the astronomical cost, remembering that even the elite Imperial subjugation squad couldn't afford gate fees. Stepping forward, he casually places his hand against a structure and reveals the entire gate belongs to the Russell family. "I honestly can't even be mad at a flex like that!" Fidgeting awkwardly in her magnificent dress, Radis hesitates before making a surprisingly timid confession. It turns out this is her very first time traveling through spatial teleportation magic, and she genuinely fears the terrible motion sickness it causes. Is she really that anxious about the ride? Seeing her look so bashful is surprisingly cute. He gazes down at her before breaking into a warm, genuine chuckle. All her remaining hesitation melts away in an instant. Reaching his gloved hand toward her with a bright, charming smile, he tenderly bids her, "Hold on, Radis." He offers his hand to keep her safe during the journey. He chuckles softly at her initial hesitation before extending a gloved hand toward her with a reassuring smile. "Hold my hand, Radis." She sits quietly for a moment, feeling a bit hesitant before gently placing her fingers inside his waiting palm. He offers his hand. As their hands join, a sweet warmth instantly passes between them, melting away her residual anxiety. Her cheeks flush instantly. Surprised by how tender his touch feels, Radis lets out a quiet breath as the magical portal begins to swirl around them in brilliant blue hues. He holds her firmly, guiding her forward as they step into the light together, leaving her past struggles and worries far behind. In the blink of an eye, the magical portal lights fades away, revealing a breathtaking view of the grand city below. Radis gazes at the sprawling rooftops and sunlit streets in complete wonder, her heart racing as she stammers, It's my first time coming to Duras. Can you blame her for being mesmerized?" Duras is famous across the realm as the premier trade capital of the empire. Travel across the border is treacherous. The dangerous forest of monsters separates the regions, forcing ordinary merchants to pay fortunes for armed escorts unless they can use a teleportation gate. Honestly, I would love a shortcut like that too. He glances down attentively, asking if the swift portal travel made her dizzy. Radis quickly shakes her head with a beaming smile, assuring him she feels completely fine. She holds his hand tightly. For anyone raised in the southern provinces, visiting a magnificent haven like Duras is a lifelong dream come true. Watching her vibrant joy, his expression softens into a warm smile as he makes a sweet proposal. "Radis, if you want, you can come to Duras anytime." Her face lights up, overflowing with excitement. She grabs his hand and tugs him forward, determined to explore every single corner of the city today until they drop. He chuckles softly to himself, finding her radiant excitement thoroughly charming as they step inside the grand theater lobby. Their sudden arrival instantly halts conversations across the gilded hall, drawing every noble's curious eyes directly toward the entrance. High society certainly loves to stare. Count Brandt immediately steps forward to greet Marquis Russell, warmly marveling at his commanding presence outside of official imperial business. Standing beside him in her elegant green gown and white stole, Radis feels the overwhelming pressure of highborn aristocrats scrutinizing her every posture. Noticing her subtle discomfort chatter, he protectively steps closer. He smooths over the awkward silence by proudly introducing her to the inquiring nobility as Miss Radis of the Tilrid family. She offers a polite curtsy, doing her best to conceal her fluttering inner anxiety. The crowd erupts into excited whispers at the sound of her historic name. Is her family's founding legacy truly that revered among high society? Listening to the aristocrats fawn over the meaningful union of their two legendary lineages leaves Radis completely taken aback. When an overly inquisitive guest boldly asks what brings the two of them out together, a sudden hush falls over the room. He steps forward with an easy smile, skillfully shielding her from the uncomfortable spotlight. "We simply came to watch a play," he answers smoothly, instantly regaining full control of the surrounding crowd. Radis gazes up at him in quiet wonder, deeply touched by his protective grace. He graciously bids the crowd to take their seats before guiding her past the velvet curtains into the auditorium. Honestly, seeing him handle elite gossip so effortlessly was absolute perfection. As the heavy wooden doors swing shut behind them, scandalous whispers ignite throughout the crowded lobby. The aristocrats huddle close together, endlessly buzzing over his mysterious young companion. Rumors take root instantly. Could it be he finally has a lover? Leaving the scandalous whispers of the lobby far behind, they step inside their grand private balcony booth. Radis settles onto the red velvet sofa, carefully smoothing her stole. She quickly thumbs through the program to distract herself from all the lingering aristocratic scrutiny. Glancing at the red booklet, her eyes widen when she recognizes the play's famous title. "It would have been nice to know beforehand," she gasps, pouting that she could not read the original novel first to properly understand the story. He remains unbothered. Sinking into her seat, she turns to the pamphlet synopsis instead. Feeling a little guilty reading by herself, Radis turns and asks if he would like to read along. He simply leans back, looking down at her before smoothly replying, "Then read it to me." Can you believe his nerve? She stares back in total disbelief before surrendering with a defeated breath. Opening the red booklet, Radis begins reading the summary aloud in a clear, rhythmic voice. The narrative follows Angela, a flame-wielding outcast who was mistrusted as a witch by her superstitious village. Sensing her true potential, Prince Christian, Knight Verno, and Sage Luminous gather their gear and set off to find her. As her reading draws to a close, the grand velvet curtains part to reveal the dazzling stage set below. The adventure begins. Radis leans forward in complete wonder while he sits calmly beside her, silently watching her bright, beaming face. On stage, Prince Christian and Angela gradually fall in love during their dangerous journey across the realm. Yet Knight Verno hides his own deep feelings while standing nearby. He suffers in silence. Honestly, is there anything more heartbreaking than an unrequited devotion? The plot enters a dramatic new phase as the antagonist, Lamia, makes a sweeping entrance under the bright spotlight. Obsessed with Prince Christian, she relentlessly harasses Angela, plunging their heroic quest into a whirlpool of jealousy. Radis sits completely spellbound, lost in the dramatic performance. The theatrical narrative drops a massive twist when the villainous Lamia is revealed to be Prince Christian's official fiancée. Radis gasps in total shock before leaping straight off the velvet sofa. Furious at the play's hero, she shouts that Christian is absolute trash. She passionately argues that an engaged man had no right approaching Angela from the beginning. When he calmly suggests Angela should just marry Knight Verno instead, Radis eagerly nods in agreement. Verno is clearly the better man. Christian deserves a thorough beatdown. He chuckles under his breath, teasingly asking who could ever handle a woman with such a fiery temper. Radis shoots back without missing a beat. "There's no need for you to worry about that, Marquis." He smirks warmly. Honestly, their playful banter is perfection. High above the crowd, an elegant silver-haired nobleman turns his gaze directly toward their private booth. Is an unexpected rival watching from afar? As Radis rests her chin in quiet thought, Marquis Russell's easy expression transforms into an intensely sharp, protective stare. Just before the grand theater play begins, Empress Adrienne Arpand gazes down from her luxurious private box with quiet disdain. "What a vulgar play," she scoffs, turning toward her silver-haired companion. "Don't you think so, Olivia?" Olivier nods smoothly, agreeing with her scathing opinion without the slightest hesitation. He never pushes back. Watching his perfectly submissive smile, Empress Adrienne feels utterly in control of the young man. How cute! Yet she secretly knows his true routine all too well. Olivier actually loves this play enough to watch it twice, even religiously reading every installment of the novel Fake Angela. Why go to such lengths to hide his preferences? Born as the third prince to the deposed Empress Chartine, Olivier suffered tragedy from the start, losing his mother in infancy. After his father cast him aside for losing his youthful beauty, the broken boy simply gave up. Court nobles once expected Olivier to become a dangerous rival to first Prince Charles, Adrienne's own son. Instead, the neglected prince grew into a hollow doll, desperately craving the warmth he never received. He posed no threat. Empress Adrienne secretly gloats over how easily she manipulates him. Just to stay in her good graces, he conceals his genuine feelings and acts like an obedient, endearing doll. Honestly, her supreme arrogance is astounding. Yet, beneath that submissive facade lies serious hidden strength. His mother's family, the Pelletier house, remains the wealthiest and most influential faction in the entire empire. Does she truly believe he is completely helpless? Loyal supporters still watch from the shadows. Determined to ensure first Prince Charles ascends the imperial throne without any interference, Adrienne resting her hand upon Olivier's silver head feels reassuring. She keeps her potential enemy close, blissfully unaware of the dangerous ambition quietly hiding behind his polite smile. Empress Adrienne remains smugly confident in her hidden scheming. She firmly believes that even if third Prince Olivier ever dares to bare his fangs, her secret safeguard will keep him completely helpless. Down on the stage below, the tragic play perfectly echoes this unspoken palace tension. Is she truly as in control as she imagines? Olivier listens in cold, calculated silence before quietly rising from his plush velvet seat. Turning his back on the arrogant empress, he steps forward toward the open balcony edge to overlook the vast auditorium. He refuses to remain her doll. "It seems you've grasped the meaning behind the play now, Your Majesty, Empress Adrienne," he muses quietly to himself as the actors perform. This is merely the prologue. Watching from his high private box, his intense purple eyes suddenly lock onto a figure standing out on the balcony level far below. His heart misses a beat as he catches sight of the striking red-haired young woman leaning against the golden railing. Radis stands there with soft grace, glowing gently under the theater lights. I certainly cannot blame him for being so entranced by her. Her blazing red hair captures his focus. The vibrant sight carries his memory straight back to the day their paths first crossed. They had met during the grand banquet held by Marquis Russell House for his 19th birthday, where her unforgettable presence left an indelible mark on his heart. Olivier remains frozen at the balcony railing, unable to tear his eyes away from Rodis. But down in the private box, sitting right beside her, a dark-haired man reclines comfortably on the couch, casting a cunning glance straight up toward the upper tier. A silent clash has already begun. The dark-haired companion steps up right beside Olivier, breaking his fixated gaze with a sharp, probing smirk. "So that sort of thing is your taste?" He quickly realizes the red-haired lady standing down below is no mere coincidence. Her presence in the theater tonight was entirely by the prince's own deliberate design. Olivier vividly remembers watching Radis look straight up toward him, her face lighting up with a radiant, unforgettable smile. Honestly, who wouldn't be completely captivated by such genuine warmth? Her luminous joy felt almost miraculous in their cold, deceptive world. "How can you smile like that?" he had asked himself in utter disbelief. He simply couldn't comprehend her strength. Back at the birthday banquet, when the herald announced Lady Margaret Tilred and her daughters entering the grand hall, Radis was treated like a complete outcast. Radis had stepped into the lavish room wearing a rough, ill-fitting dress that had never known a caring hand. While snobbish noblewomen pointed and whispered cruel mockery behind lace fans, her own family turned their backs and abandoned her. She stood entirely alone. Observing her from the upper balcony deck, Olivier saw straight through her brave facade. Didn't it hurt inside? Knowing that showing the slightest weakness would leave her torn apart, she still forced herself to hold her head high. He knew that lonely agony by heart. Trapped in a ruthless palace where showing emotion meant instant destruction, young Olivier spent his life suffering in total isolation. Seeing her fight so desperately to stand on her own, he recognized a kindred spirit. Back in the present theater box, the dark-haired companion leans down intimate and close, whispering directly into Radis's ear. Watching them from high above, Olivier's cold composure starts to fracture. Will he finally step forward and claim her before she slips away? High up in the grand private box, Empress Adrienne scoffs that the theatrical play is far too vulgar for them to keep watching. Third Prince Olivier simply nods along in calculated silence, never taking his focus off Radis standing far down below. Ordering him to make preparations for their immediate departure, the Empress turns on her heel and steps toward the lounge. The moment her heavy velvet skirts vanish down the hall, Olivier's polite smile instantly vanishes. He is finally alone. Without wasting another second, he calls his trusted attendant Joel straight into the secluded private room. "I'll be writing a short letter, so bring me paper and a pen." What secret plan is he putting into motion right now? Meanwhile, down on the lower balcony deck, Radis wipes away tears while her dark-haired companion light-heartedly teases her emotional breakdown. She loudly sobs that the hero's tragic song completely destroyed her composure. Honestly, her sweet sincerity is just too cute. The grand play's climax of betrayal, heartbreak, and true love had swept her away completely. But just as the sage blesses the lovers and the stage curtain falls, an ominous warning echoes through the whole auditorium. Darkness will return once more. Radis warmly vows she will never forget this play for the rest of her life. Leaning dangerously close with a knowing smirk, her dark-haired companion whispers that he was quite satisfied as well. Why does he look so thoroughly amused by her? Reaching deep into his formal jacket, he pulls out a sleek envelope and places it directly into her trembling fingers. "Because the third prince sent you a love letter." Her jaw completely drops in shock.